It's been a long day, but yeah, like I said, it's always good to change seats. When you're used to driving, it's good when you get to be in the passenger seat or even the back seat and just relax. And so this is the opportunity that Underpalm affords me, is the opportunity just to fall back while Sister Miranda does her thing. And so yeah, it's gonna be rather interesting. And I think it's a continuation of the conversation we had last week. Don't ask me to remember the title because I don't. But what you remember the title? She's laughing. I'm serious.
Last week on the relationship challenge, the special edition, special summer edition of the relationship challenge, we looked at leadership and when the leadership fails the flock. And so you're absolutely right. Today's conversation is definitely a continuation of that. This is a segue from the original thought of the leadership failing the flock, and now we're looking at some of the consequences, some of the residuals, some of the damage of that kind of neglect and that kind of abuse that's coming from the flock. So we're going to call those particular types of leaders precisely what they are. They are the predators. They are the wolves. They are the ones that are supposed to be protecting us from the wolves and being the shepherds when they themselves have become the wolves. And so we're going to look at that. That was absolutely a great segue into why we're here this evening and where we're coming from. So if you missed the first half of this conversation, at the end of this conversation, I invite you to go back into the YouTube at www.youtube.com/debate talk for you. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, and you will find the entire catalog of the TRC episode. But the last one is the beginning portion, the part one to this part two conversation. Sal, do we have our special guest live?
Not as of yet, but throughout, you got to press number one. Throughout, you have a lot of callers on the phone line, so just press number one on number.
No, I see Sister Tifada on the YouTube, so she's here. Sister, if you're on the line, feel free to press 1 so Sal could bring you into the queue. And welcome once again.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I need to call in.
She's gonna call in now.
Okay. So we also have, for those of you who want to. That emerge throughout history. We've always had someone who emerges to initiate a task, a mission, and or takes the reign or puts themselves in the forefront to forward a particular thought, and then that person amasses a particular following. And that happens in every community, every faith-based organization, any kind of place where there are a number of people and then there's something going on and a need is among them. There's always someone that emerges as the one that has taken the reign or has taken the initiative to forward something. And so we have several people, And sometimes we have camps. Sometimes we have what's called Knesset or congregations. And in all of these pockets, there is someone who's looked to for guidance, who's looked to set and keep a standard. And if we are lucky, if the Most High is with them, then the standard that they're keeping is Torah. You know, no matter where, if it develops into other pockets of Israelite history, it's still the idea that it always points back to the Most High's written word or the Most High's expressed intent for His people. And good leadership understands that maintaining the standard that the true and living power has put forward is what it's all about, and that's how we're going to manage our return. Unfortunately, sometimes that does not happen, or sometimes the leadership changes their direction. And the mission is no longer about the Creator, but they are starting to invest in their own popularity, or they start to become a little addicted to the attention. They become more invested in the performance of being an Israelite, the performance of being a leader. And as with a lot of cases, both inside and outside, but if you are familiar with our work, if you're familiar with the work that Amuna and I have partnered to do in various media platforms across social media, then you know we are no strangers to banging on bad doctrine, bad information. We certainly do not allow anyone outside of the community to misrepresent what we do inside the community, but that doesn't mean that we are not prepared or capable of turning the lens in and looking at our own people. And unfortunately, it has come to pass that our leadership has been very irresponsible. A lot of people, the leadership has been very irresponsible, abusive, and there's a misuse of the trust and the faith of the people. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about what happens when the trust of the people has become misused, misplaced, and abused. So at this time, I'll check to see if our special guest is live and see if she wants to give an introduction. Is our special guest live? Sal, are you able to check her mic? Shalom? Shalom. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, sis. I didn't hear Sal introduce you. So since Sal wasn't able to introduce you, go ahead and greet the people.
Shalom, everyone. This is Tafora Segura. Just checking in with my sisters, and just wanted to touch on a few things that have been going on in the community and see how we can bring some type of resolve to this. So honored to be here, and I'm here.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to mention to the people how they may have come across you, what platforms you've been associated with, any new projects that you're involved in that is helpful to the people? Because I know that right now that you're doing a lot of things in terms of outreach, helping women to become more self-sufficient, and exploring different methods of becoming closer and more proficient in their relationship with the Creator, and kind of making it less necessary to be dependent on leadership, to have that kind of relationship. So if you want to share with the people some of the projects you're involved in, and maybe some of the past projects you were involved in, and kind of locate the audience as to where we are in this conversation and how you're part of that.
Oh, perfect. Well, first, let me just say that there's a passion of mine to just sincerely help people. Whether those people are in the northeast or west corners of this earth, and help our people. About 10 years ago, I started a business called Four Cornerstones, and simply it was started from a mission to connect the dots, because I believe that we're all good at something, and sometimes we're just not connected with the right people to be able to utilize those skills, or be able to have somebody else to assist, or have somebody else to be able to help each other. And so it started off initially as a women's mentorship program, and it then led on to providing operational support systems for small businesses, providing administrative support for small businesses when they first get started, whether it's with website development, whether it's with setting up board structure, whether it's grant writing services, and then it then branched over into providing employment services for parents. And so for minority men and women who had children initially, who were either laid off or unemployed, or needed help finding their jobs with their skill set, maybe they needed help writing a resume or a cover letter, and they weren't sure where to go or what to do, or learn how to use a Word program. So then there's training that was provided and is provided for them as well. Was currently working on a mentorship program for young boys and young girls for them to take over the summer. That would be a 6-week course, just taught on the basics of life, something that will keep them interacted on a social level, but keep them kind of away from something and being productive at the same time. And so that is what Four Cornerstones provide. In addition to that, a lot of people may have seen me on Facebook. My Facebook name is Tafora Sagula. And one of the things that anybody who has known me has known that I am just really passionate about truth, passionate about honesty, passionate about making sure that the people who do not have a voice see their voice. I came into what's considered to be the truth about 4.5 years ago, and not by way of any particular camp, just by revelation of the Most High. And so as a result of that, I've been now connected with more people on the Facebook platform and on Instagram, just connecting together, because you get excited when you find others that are in the truth. One of some of the past projects that I worked with is I recently just finished working with Kingdom Harbinger Ministries with Divine Prospect, was working with him probably a little over a year on just some things that he's working on with getting Kingdom Harbinger up and structured. And that project came to an end maybe about a month or so ago. I've helped people here on Facebook that wanted to observe the holy days, but were not sure how to address their employers on what to do legally that they can do to take off. So I provide services if people need holy day letters and not part of a congregation, so they weren't sure where to go. So I provide those tools. I did a Monday Manna weekly Bible study for women, because there's a lot of women that are not in congregations that simply wanted to study and be a part, but kind of intimidated to be around men. In doing so, because of what they would see online. Excuse me.
No. I really appreciate you sending all of those, you sharing all of the different projects that you are associated with, and the different ways the sisters can reach out to you, and the different ways that you can help and assist in the community. I know that recently you became involved with the Brothers at Paradigm, right? That's what they're called. And that they are offering, they have been very active in helping sisters learn biblical Hebrew, learning all of the not just how to go to the Strong's, look up a number and associate it with whatever text they're reading, but to really understand how the words are put together, how sentences are put together. And so to really, to empower for all intents and purposes, the women to really study on their own and to become less dependent on leadership. Have you seen any ways? I mean, all of us have seen what happens when leadership has become more powerful than the people and more powerful than the Torah, even more influential than even the Torah. We have seen that, unfortunately, tragically, Demona has it's such a heartbreaking and infuriating truth that we have to face, that the elders, those that were supposed to protect, those that were supposed to maintain, betrayed the people of the Most High in the most horrific ways. So now we see sexual immorality running rampant, and it's not something that is happening in the body; it's happening from the head, and it's disturbing and it's heartbreaking because it's like when your parents can't, who protects you? When the elders aren't there to protect you, who protects you? When you're coming in and you're saying, I don't know, and I'm asking you to help, and the help is the enemy. And that's when we're really in trouble. We're supposed to be coming together so that we can return to the Most High. We beseech the Most High. We petition the Most High. We want to be rescued from our oppression. We want to be delivered from our different ideas of captivity, and yet we have this kind of disease in the body. And the idea that we can't turn to the people who are saying, I'm going to take the leadership roles. I'm going to be the one to light the fires at the top of the mountains and be the guiding light and study and research so that I can answer your questions. The ones that put themselves in Moshe's seat and claim to be hearing a word from the Most High and giving that back to us, that we find it in the darkness, on the Shabbat days, under every shade tree are doing these kinds of sexual abuses, emotional abuses, physical abuses, spiritual abuses. The word is unacceptable. So I mean, Amuna, have you seen any of this type of unacceptable misuse of authority, misuse of the people's trust among those that call themselves leaders in our community?
Unfortunately, the answer would have to be yes. This is something that it's everywhere. It's not only just in one specific congregation or one affiliation or one mindset, whether you're Messianic, non-Messianic, it's across the board. This abuse and to be fair, I know we're speaking about our community. This is corruption of power and authority in all places. The saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely is just true. It's true. And so no matter what the person says they have, if they have the quote unquote truth, if they get into a space, and I spoke about it, I don't even remember another time, but if you get into a space where the people give you so much power that the people no longer think for themselves, and that person becomes the brain, that person, it gives them this demigod-like status. And the ego oftentimes cannot differentiate, when to get that dose of that adoration, that dose of man worship. It likes it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I can get used to this. You see, and so this is the issue that we see across the board, the exploitation of religion in general, but it is even more heartbreaking when we see it in the community amongst those. And again, every space the person thinks they have the quote unquote truth, right? But amongst our people, especially in this day and time, it's coming out like all at the same time, that these wolves in shepherd's clothing, are amongst us, and they come in all different forms. Some where you can see, as you see them, something is off, and others you don't realize it until you've already been ensnared. And so to say that even has one face is difficult. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't. It comes in all different shapes and forms. The abuse may be physical. Some spaces, the abuse is purely mental and emotional. In another space, it may be manipulation. And so if we, the people, are broken, we may not realize when we're being manipulated. We may not realize when we're being taken for a ride, because the leader, he is also broken, or she's also broken. And so you have this dysfunctional cycle that's happening. And it's only when one or the other fails the expectation do we get jarred out of it and be like, okay, something is wrong here. You know what I mean? And so definitely back to the question, is something that we have to continue to talk about, and hopefully proactively, so that we'll have less horror stories and more Torah Most High stories. Wow, I'm glad I dodged that one. You know what I mean? And so that's what this work is about, is ringing the alarm so that the people can get the warning before it actually happens, to know you should be warned that this is out there. And over the last couple of years, in this particular vein, that's what we've been doing, you know. So all praise be to the Most High. I pray that more and more people begin to wake up and I'll say this, not give a reason to why you should leave the Creator, because a lot of people fall into these traps because they worship the individual, and now all of a sudden it's a problem with the Torah, or it's a problem with the Most High. For us to realize it was a problem with that individual that we chose to put our trust in. And it's also a problem with us because we chose to give this person so much power and sway in our lives. Too many times the person just walks away, or the family walks away and totally out of the way. And that also is a problem. But I'll relinquish the mic for now.
Absolutely. I want the audience to stick a pin in that the last thought that Amuna has introduced, the idea that once we have placed or misplaced our faith, our trust, our adulation, and our affection into the person, and then when that person fails us, we turn our back on the Creator, like the Creator did it. And we say it many, many times. We said it before. I'll say it again now. If you came here looking for a man, you'll get what you came for. You will get what you came for. If you come here looking for the Creator, then you don't leave when the man fails or the woman fails or whomever you have placed your trust. The whole point of all of this, all of our efforts, is to return to the Creator. That is supposed to be our end goal. We have a caller. I'm going to have to call to be patient because I want to bring our sister back into the conversation, and I'll do that after I bring this out. I'm going to mention the quote it's a quote by John Action, and it's a quote that I used when I did the debate with Gene Freshour, when we were talking about polygyny. And it's the quote it's a famous quote about power. And it says, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But he goes on to say, great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still more when they superadd the tendency or certainty of corruption by authority. So very often we know the first part of this quote. Even I knew the first part of the quote by rote, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Literally, it tends to corrupt absolutely. But the second and third parts of that quote are also equally potent. He goes on to say that great men, to remember this idea of absolute power, is going to exalt the man to be a great man. So he goes on to say great men are almost always bad men. And for me, that was such an interesting, kind of resigning to this idea that once a person receives that kind of power, it's almost expected that they are almost always bad men. And we find that we had powerful people throughout our scriptures, and they were great men, good men, perfect in their generation. The idea behind that was it was a good thing. To receive this as a blessing, you did the right thing, but unfortunately, when the Most High is not part of that equation, John's action is right. That these types of great men are almost always bad men. He goes on to say, even when they exercise influence and not authority. So it's not even when you have authority, all you have to have is influence. And that's still dangerous. I mean, there's parts of these quotes and things that these people are saying, is when we have people reflecting on our culture, our society, and human behavior, it's really interesting to see how some of this gets fleshed out. And the quote in the beginning is a very potent one, but as the thought gets fleshed out and the concept gets explored, and we find that, sometimes even influence, like you don't even have to have authority. Influence is very, very, very dangerous in the hands of someone that is irresponsible or someone who is determined to do evil, or someone who's determined to be selfish and isn't thinking about the other person. And when we're talking about leadership, that's all about the other people. And so it's very, very dangerous when leadership loses sight of their mission. Sister, I so used to calling you by your Jake name that your Hebrew name is it doesn't come as naturally, so forgive me for that. So, sister, so bringing you back to the conversation at hand, like in your experiences, have you seen any ways in which leadership goes this wrong? That there is an abuse of the trust, a betrayal of this kind of vulnerability that leadership is a part of. Like leadership receives vulnerability from the people. There's a vulnerability among the members that leadership has the responsibility to protect. Have we've all seen the Mona, we've seen certain things happen. Again, as the Mona said, it's not specific to it's not isolated. I'm glad it is, obviously different. Camps are doing it, but they're not isolated. And it's certainly not isolated. And I want to go on record as saying it's certainly not isolated to our community. Just because we're talking about Israel today doesn't mean that Israel is the shining example of corruption. Because for every episode before this one, we let everybody know what's going on outside, and they need to stop poking their little fingers at our community like things are going wrong in their churches and in their mosques and in wherever their street corners, whatever they're doing over there under their branches and their Elohim or whatever names they call on. Just because right now we're cleaning house, don't think that this is your opportunity to pony up and come over here because you will still, I recommend you don't do it. Just letting you know right now. Don't call in here because my animal will still let you know that's not what you do here. So just I'll bring you back into the conversation. Your experience, have you seen any of these things happen, and what are your thoughts?
Thank you. Sis, it's, I'm gonna go back to reminding you what the name of and I'll call it a ministry, but really it's just a source of communication. And the name of the company is called Four Cornerstones. And so your point being was absolutely, it's not exclusive to one community or other. But what I'm going to focus on the most is the community that is inside of the four corners of the people that have been dispersed that are called by the name of Yah. Those are the people that I'm concerned with. And so that's what I'm going to address. And so, have I seen it? Unfortunately, I have. And I've had my own Demona. And if you don't know what that means or what that looks like, it is like someone, so let me give you, if I could, a visual of what that looks and feels like. So a little bit about me. I was in the church. My dad is a Baptist pastor. So I was in the church for 30-something years. And 4 years ago, I started to question the Sabbath day and the observance of it. And some of the things that were taught to me as a child by my father, who I love dearly, that were not quite lining up. And so, naturally, because I'm still daddy's girl, so to speak, I reach out to him and I say, hey, did you know when the Sabbath is? And he says, yes, I do. And he tells me it's Friday when the sun goes down and Saturday when the sun goes down. And I kind of paused for a second because it kind of shocked me that he knew the answer. I was sure that he did not know the answer. But once he said yes, I asked him, I said, well, why do we go to church on Sunday? And he says, well, that's just what we do. He said, that's just how it's always been. And so I was like, okay, so we're just doing this because everyone else is doing it? So I kind of used what he used to tell me, well, if everybody else jumps off the bridge, do we jump off too? And he kind of chuckles a little bit, but he didn't understand how serious it was to me, because for the first time in my life, I was crushed knowing that he had just not only lied to me, but lied to others. And there was no real reason as to why. Ignorance is one thing. They say ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is not necessarily bliss. Ignorance is actually nowhere being close to bliss at all. As a matter of fact, I hate that cliche. But what I will say is the moment that he told me that he knew that he was wrong and was going against what was in Torah, my heart shattered. And so it is a gut-wrenching feeling. If I have to describe it, it's almost like someone punched me in my stomach as hard as they could, and it took the wind out of me. Because you got to remember, here he is, my father, the man that was supposed to protect me and to love me and to shelter me from the world, has just pretty much killed me from the inside out. And so I had to take that hurt and then figure out what was I going to do with it. Because a lot of times, people that get church hurt, so to speak, they just either never start going to church or their focus and their passion goes to someplace different. So I decided not to be so church hurt that I just discontinued from what I believed to be my relationship with God at the time, or Yah, or what have you at the time, the deity that I believed that I worshiped at the time. And so I said, okay, now what do I do? Now that I've realized that I've been taught an error, now I have to go relearn what I thought I knew. And so I go onto this journey, right? So I detour down the road less traveled, right? And I began to go onto this journey of let me find out what's actually real. And so I began to now start studying. And so at this point in my life, I'm in what's called the quote-unquote truth. I get on Facebook, and now I start collecting with other people who are just in the quote-unquote truth is what it's called. And so now what I'm realizing is I see a lot of disunity. And I don't mean to be long with it, but just to give you a visual picture of my experience. And so now I'm looking at just disunity everywhere. And in my mind, I don't understand what I'm seeing. So in my mind, I said, okay, there's clearly some division here. Let me just go fix it. So I decide that I'm going to bring everybody together, and I'm going to host a all-Hebrew family reunion. And so I talked to a friend on the phone, and he says, listen, if you're going to do that, you're going to need to reach out to all of the leaders in the community and try to see if you can get them on web page. But what I'll try to tell you is it's probably not going to happen. Well, at the time, I didn't know anything about a camp or the GMS or the IUICs or the ISUPKs or the Sakaris or the what have you. I didn't know anything about that. I just knew that I saw the vision. I wanted to try to fix it. And so I reached out to a lot of those people during that particular time. And was amazed that I got a lot of people saying that they were on board, but everyone's simply saying that it's probably not going to work. And so I continued on that journey, and that event was not successful. And so I got a little discouraged, and I said, okay, well, maybe I don't need to tackle that. But what can I do to others? Because during this time, I'm now finding that more and more people that I would have never assumed that would listen to me, being that I was, Reverend Williams' daughter, in the church every Sunday, now doing something because at first they thought I was in a cult. They thought I was, crazy, and they thought I was Jewish. And then it was like, okay, wait a minute, is she Muslim? Is she, what's going on? So now people begin to now listen to what was going on, and like, okay, well, she's still studying from what's called the Bible. Okay, so she can't be too far off the beaten path. And so here it is, I'm on my little journey in my mind, attempting to connect the dots. Dots meaning the people that are within those four corners, and I'm thinking there's got to be a way to bring everyone together. And so in the midst of doing that, I now redirect my focus with four cornerstones to not only helping everyone, but not only helping the minorities, to those that are within the four corners of the world that are in the diaspora. And so I said, okay, how do I apply this to the people that are in the truth? Because I think our people need connectors. We need to be connected together. And so what does that look like? And who do I connect with that can be the most effective? Because everyone here seems to be very downtrodden in their approach to how they're interpreting the text and how they're giving it out, because it's not making sense. It's not lining up with what they're telling me. And then I come across a ministry that was a little different than the rest. And so I'm like, okay, so someone says, that's a divine prospect. That's Ron Shields. He's a good guy. And he knows a lot about everything. And, you should go follow him. And I remember 2.5 years ago, December 2016. Whenever that was, I think it was December 2016. Me reaching out to him and sending him a friend request and saying, hey, he reaches back out to me like, who are you, lady? And I'm like, listen, I was recommended to you by somebody, and I'm all happy, like everybody from the whole hand saying kumbaya, like, hey, listen, it's me. I just want to connect. I heard that you could help me, and I heard that you had great information, and I'm just gonna kind of check you out. And so for about a course of 6 months to 9 months, I kind of checked out his approach to how he dealt with, or what appeared to how he dealt with life, and how Torah was practically applied. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I dig his style. I like that, because this is a little bit different than the hostility that I see from some of these people. And so over the course of time, there, of course, naturally, as a single woman, because I had been single for quite some time, me reaching out to him and saying, hey, you seem like you got your head on your shoulders. What do you think about this person that's interested in me? What do you think about this person? And then, you know, we talk and he will give me his yes or no. And then, hey, what do you think about this doctrine? Or this is what I'm looking at. What do you think about these facts? What do you think about these dates? Are they lining up? And so we would talk here and there. And so finally, very recently, meaning last September, you know, he reaches out to me on my Facebook page after, you know, again, having a semi-friendship established, and me assuming that he's just, man, he's a great guy. You know, this is just, man, he's just different. He talks about bringing the community together, and there's no qualms there. So in my mind, as a woman that is looking to connect and looking to build something among the people, and to find someone else that is aligned in that same way, I was inspired. I was like, yes, this is it. And so one of the things that you mentioned earlier is, where does that trust, the trust that we put into the people, see, that's where the trust comes in. Because after you've looked at someone for a time based on what you could see, you just assume that they are that way 24 hours a day. Whether naive or not, that's kind of what we think. And so without knowing it, you know, then we then begin to put people on a pedestal or make an idol out of them, you know, because in our mind, this is how they must always operate, right? And so going back to the story, so we, you know, he's like, I know that you do this type of work. And I had been reaching out to him over a course of time saying, hey, if you need anything, let me know. This is kind of what I do. And I'm here if you need me. So finally he said, you know, you've been asking, and so I'll take you up on your offer. You know, I'm trying to restructure my ministry, and I could really use your assistance. And so we collab together, and we decide we're going to start working together. And then that working relationship turns into what appears to be an opportunity for me to learn a different venture of what was defined at the time as culture. And in my mind, the more I learned, the more I realized that we were indeed connected to our culture and also disconnected to some degree. And it was a new area for me that I wasn't aware of. So I'm like, okay, well, sure. You know, what does that look like? You know, tell me, paint this picture to me as to what is that, how does this operate? And so I trusted that what he was telling me was authentic and true. And for the most part, most of those things, and from what I could gather, were. But then there are other things that didn't quite line up. And unfortunately, the things that didn't quite line up were things that I could not verify because I could not read the Hebrew. So I had to just go off of what was told to me. So I asked him over a period of a year, could you teach me how to read Hebrew? And I was always told that I would, I'll teach you one day. And that one day never came because it kept being pushed off. So I had an opportunity to learn how to read Hebrew. And at the same time, I also had an opportunity that was presented to me for him and I to build on a personal relationship in addition to our business relationship, because he and his wife was looking for another wife, and I just so happened to fit that role. And let's see if this could work together, because the wife that we're looking for would have to have these skills and this skill set, and you have that. And so because of how it was presented, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. It's not like, you know, he's coming on to me like, you know, trying to hit on me like most guys would. I was like, okay, let me think about this. And so I really thought about it, and I prayed about it, and I said, okay, well, I agreed to him leading me, so surely he wouldn't lead me astray. I've not necessarily heard anything negative, so to speak, so far. So, you know, sure, why not? What do I have to lose is what I thought. What do I have to lose? And so, being that he told me it was his wife that brought the invitation to him, and I said, okay, so this won't surely be the drama that you see on a lot of people's pages, or a lot of sisters that inbox me and say, man, sis, I'm hurt because this is what's going on. I said, okay, so this is different. So I asked him, I said, how do we do this so that it's different than what you see? Because I don't want to be a part of the drama that I see. And he said, just follow my lead. I said, okay, sure. And so then we went down the Yellow Brick Road and the rabbit hole at the same time. That turned out not to be a rabbit hole. It was actually a landmine. And so now I have established a working relationship, and now we have established a personal relationship. And then before it went intimate, it was under the terms of, within a couple of months, we will make this known to everyone. So it will be an open courting type of situation. and we will do that for a period of time, and then things will be done right way. Because the right way is all I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, well, cool. I'm just kind of following his lead. And then over a course of time, I'm realizing that that doesn't happen. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I'm not sure if your wife knows what's going on, because this is our conversation that we had the other day, and I wasn't quite sure what to say. And so and I say wife, and I'm not saying that is actually his wife. They're not actually legally married. I'm just saying his wife just because she had been there before me. So they're not even technically legally married. And now that I think about it, how could I be the second when there's no first? But that's neither here nor there. So fast forward on. So I continue to build on what I thought would be me becoming a second wife in the quote-unquote righteous way. So we're going to do this the right way. So I still don't tell a few people. And then we had a young lady that was with KHM that had an issue with someone else that worked there. And the young lady came to me in confidence and just was a little baffled, like, I'm not sure what's going on. Now, little did the young lady know, she was end up pretty much letting me know about a situation that was going on between her and Divine Prospect. So I'm like, okay, so now we have another lady here is feeling some kind of way about me coming in, and then here he is, I'm trying to rectify a situation. So there's more people now being added to the picture. Anyway, long story short, that young lady was no longer with KHM, but he lost a vile volunteer who was on his staff because no one wanted to work with the lady. We couldn't put our finger on, we couldn't figure out why. Fast forward on through time. In the midst of me assuming, based on what I was told, we were going to all do the right thing. We were going to do this the right way. We're going to set the example, and we're going to have a community being built, and it's going to be an autonomous community, and we need to get set up, and we need to get all these things to find out that KHM is not even a real company. It's not even legit. They're not even registered anywhere. There's just GoFundMe set up that's going to bank accounts. There is account set up saying there are posts, we're helping people, but I never could like those posts, and I never saw the help. I heard about it, but I never saw it. So I couldn't like those posts. There are just things that were being done that were not being done with integrity that made me kind of begin to question different things. And so as I saw them, I wanted to address them, but I was like, maybe I'm just tripping. Maybe it has to get to a certain point, because I trusted him, because I believed that whatever he was saying I was his number one fan. Like, don't be anything about him, because I thought that he kept Torah all the time, and that's what he led me to believe. I want to stop here because we have you for a few hours, and I want to get some more of this. But we have callers that have called in. It sounds like they want to ask us some questions. But you made a lot of really great points. And although we're talking right now just about KHM and your personal testimony with this particular community leader, a lot of what you said is very general about one of the things that we find ourselves as a people falling into certain traps. We fall in love with the idea of the person. We fall in love with the presentation of the person. And because we have such innocent intentions, and we kind of get caught up in what we are intending and lose sight of what's in some cases really going on. And like you said, you start to see things, the flags start to pile up, and then you find at some point you're just in too deep and things have gone out of control, and things that you would normally, like you said, you have a business, you're very intelligent, you're very intuitive, you're very easily, you pick up on things, and then but when you're in the midst of things, some of those filters get deactivated. And so we want to look at how that happens to all of us as a community, whether we're part of that ministry or other ministries or other camps. And we have callers, and the numbers are piling up. So we're going to go and take our first caller and then our second caller and see where it goes from there. So you can go ahead and open up the phone lines.
Let's go to 678-497. You're live.
can hear you.
What's going on? You're live.
Oh, you know what? This is Marielle. And you know what? I didn't even push one. I don't know, for some reason it said you're now in the host queue. So I don't know. I just tuning in. But
Yeah, I'm gonna move on to this caller.
go ahead. Yeah, yeah. So y'all have a good show going on. Go ahead.
Go ahead and hang out. We'll talk to you a little bit.
Yeah. I'll call in a little bit. I want to get the show.
Oh, okay. All right, let's go to 908-463. You're live. 908-463. Can you hear me? Hello? 908. Are you there? All right. Well,
Call into Debate Talk for You and listen to the show. Lexi is blowing Ron Shields up.
We can hear you.
He was doing all types of stuff.
All right, then. We have some listeners out there. Hallelujah. For tuning in, everyone. Do we have anyone else waiting to speak to us?
No, that's it. Only two, but I'll let you know before callers call in.
Okay, well, great. So we do have some very engaged and excited and energetic listeners tuning in. And, of course, all of you, we can see you. We see that you're listening. We see that some of you are already dialed in. If you want to have a conversation with us, if you want to join the conversation, remember you have to press 1 so that I can open your mic and bring you into the conversation. Right now, you're listening to, if you're wondering what's going on and why we're throwing names around and what's this about a scandal, you're not tuning into TMZ. This is the Under the Palm Hebrew Women Speak Summer Edition, and we're looking at some of the ways that leadership disappoints, some of the ways that the ones that we're looking to be the shepherds that protect from the wolves, have they themselves become the wolves? Have they themselves become the predators, the vultures, the scavengers, picking at the weaknesses, vulnerabilities, the trust of the people? And the ways in which that has presented itself. We began by talking about the recent tragedy, the recent heart-wrenching, the emotional roller coaster, finding out about the ways the people of the Most High have been treated and misused in the Mona. And it's not that it happened. It's not that it's happening in a land far, far away. Yes, this happened in the land. Yes, this happened in Israel. But it happens here all of the time. And we're able to have these conversations, those of us here in the States, and look at the Mona and say, wow, look at what the Mona did all the way over there, and not look at how a lot of the policies that we accept here, a lot of the doctrine that we accept here, a lot of the ways that we isolate ourselves and insulate our membership and sort of separate them from their voices, separate them from their networks, separate them from their advocacies outside to get the help that they need when leadership isn't there. So right now we're listening to our sister give a personal testimony about an organization that she was part of, that she trusted and that she even invested in, and ultimately got into a personal relationship with the leadership there, and believed some things that were a little misleading, and ultimately led to her separating from not just the ministry, but from the person that she began a relationship with. And this idea is right now we're talking about a personal situation, but we develop relationships. Sometimes they're intimate, but usually they're not. They don't necessarily go into those spaces. But we develop relationships with the people that we trust. We develop relationships with the people that we admire, and we develop a type of vulnerability to those people. So when that betrayal sets in, you don't really know what to make of it. Like Amuna said, it's easier to blame the creator than to blame the fact that we fell into a snare, and that the leadership was able to deceive us. And we don't want to deal with that. We don't deal with the fact that we allowed for things. We allowed to put, we broke the very first of all commands, and that's not to put anyone before the Creator. If the Creator was first, then we would keep that in the mind. But instead, we start to trust that our leadership is a representative of the Most High, and that person, male or female, there's a lot of female leadership, and sometimes the sisters feel betrayed by other sisters. There are brothers that are listening, are starting to maybe put sisters on pedestals, maybe they're better than they possibly are. There's different ways that we go into different spaces. But when we're looking at this kind of sexual betrayal, we're looking at these types of spiritual and emotional betrayals, we're looking at the abuse of children in some cases, and so we really need to pay attention. And we really need to we need to think about, I want to make this clear. My panel already knows, I want the listening audience to be clear that, yes, we're going to talk about what the problems are, but in this conversation, I want us to start thinking about safeguards. How do we safeguard ourselves from falling into these snares? How can we start looking at and paying attention to these red flags? I'll let her go a little further into her testimony. All of this is already public, so it's not like we're exposing anything. This is not, yellow journalism in any way. The sister has already made her testimony public, and so this is she's sharing it now on our platform. And but like we said, I wanted her to share some of the other things that she's doing, because there are other ways to empower us, so that we are participants. I said this before, that we become participants in our study, that the leader isn't the only one or the best to ever do it, but that we are elevating ourselves, we're leveling up, so that we can have conversations with our leadership, that we can build with our leadership, because ultimately, like I said, we're supposed to be embracing and yielding to the Creator. That's supposed to be the end goal, but very often, unfortunately, let's start talking about, I'm going to come back to the panel, and I'm going to ask this question. In your estimation, in your experiences, and even if in your research, what have you seen, or what have you found might lead one to fall into these snares? What could, for example, if my question isn't clear, for example, a possible answer would be, if there's already a void in the membership, if the person or the individual has a void, the leader might fill that void. If a person, for example, is looking for a father figure, if you have a very strong, masculine, stable-looking leader, even as a man, you might want to say, I want this person near me so that I can have this. If you think that sounds weird, you just need to go to Isaiah 3, and we see where the men are in this kind of dystopian condition, and the Most High is judging Jerusalem, and the men are saying, to other men for them to lead them, because they can't do it. We don't have bread. You have bread. You have clothing. Come rule over our households. This was the cry of the men. So it's not, anything, kind of homosexual. I'm not implying it's homosexual, but there's a void there, and if you see it in another person, you may become attracted to an energy that you're missing. So, having used that example, what other examples, what other possible reasons might there be for us to fall into these kinds of snares? Amuna, you're Queen of Soul Dynamics. That's actually the name of your ministry and your work. So what are your thoughts? Like, what are a couple, maybe name one or two or three different ways that this kind of snare can present itself? What can we look for?
I'm here. You named some of them, Sister Mayana. No, you named them. If there's a pre-existing injury, even like when Sister Tifora was giving her story, and then listening to what transpired, I'm doing the whole Soul Anonymous program running. I'm like, okay, I could see. You see what I'm saying? A replacement of a pre-existing injury in a certain space. You know what I mean? And so when we are injured emotionally, through people we may have trusted in our younger years, through our experiences, as you say, we're going to begin to attract either said people back into our lives, or said experiences back into our lives, and more often than not, they cause re-injury. And so when we're not aware of what our shortcomings are, then we are blinded. And even if we see them, the need is so much, the desire is so much, that it overshadows those red flags. So the red flags, instead of being glaring, they kind of wane in the distance. And so this is what, when you begin to clear up the broken places within you, then you can heed. It's like not having brakes, right? I know it's wrong. I know I feel something is off, but I need this more than I need to stop. And only when the person or the thing has offended us, only when they no longer suit what we needed them for, do we get jarred back into reality. So I would say, like you said, whether it be a mother figure, a father figure, something that you're missing, you know what I mean? And this person, the energy of that person, because energy draws or it repels. And so oftentimes we're pulled into the energy of the person because it's something we've been longing for, something that we're accustomed to, something that we're familiar with. Really depends on whatever the experience is. And so I would say, as I usually say, the person has to know themselves. Take time apart, not stop seeking the Most High, but take time to be honest about what your shortcomings are and what you're wrestling with. I kind of approach the situation that we're all broken, right? We all have issues. This is part of returning. So for someone to say that I don't have an issue, they're not being 100% honest. There is some injury in some place, because it said that to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, right? And showing mercy to thousands that love me and keep my commandments. We are the return. So we're injured in certain spaces. And so as it relates to your question, one of the safeguards I would say is actually to go through your own healing journey and process. The truth is not just about I'm Israel, or I'm awakened, or I'm supposed to do Torah. The truth is to be honest with, when you recall and bring to mind, as the Torah says, when you bring to mind the things, it says you will loathe yourself. This is part of the purging process. When you call to mind the issues, the things that you used to do, the places that you came from, the experiences, this is part of the healing process, because you get to bring it up and then you get to expel it. You get to push it away from your body. You get to purge it. But if you cover it and you push it deep down inside, then you become prey for the predator. You see what I'm saying? And so that for me is, for what I have found, is the number one safeguard, because, and I'll leave it at this, when you try to warn someone, which we are still commanded to do, we can't put stumbling blocks before the vine, we must warn. But again, you cannot see. You can't see, you're blinded because of your need. It's greater than what the person is saying. So at the time that you're warning the person, they can't hear you. It's unfortunate, but it's true. It's only after the incident has happened, after the injury has occurred, then they have time to reflect and say, oh, wow, you know, such and such told me, man, I should have listened. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's my 2 cents on particular question. I will.
Right, put up for that. I knew you were going to wrap it up and put it in a nice, pretty, yummy cottage packaging so that people could consume it better. I appreciate you, sis. Sister Farah, how about you? What other ways do you imagine that we fall into these sins? What other, is it always just us? Is it sometimes just them? Or do you say that it's both? That there's something that's happening within the member, but then there's also this component of deception that the leadership is participating in?
I think Amuna did an awesome job with explaining it to a degree, but if I could piggyback off of what she just said, you know, she mentioned the red flags. And what I will say is, in my personal experience, you know, there gets to a place in life, and for me it was 3 years ago, where you just, like, you know, cut out all of the crap and let's just deal with life as what it is. And I must say, and I think I've told you this, you know, off the record before, that you guys are much more poised than I am. I know that. I pray there are no elders on the phone so I don't get in trouble afterwards. But what I'm going to say is this. I don't believe all of it is true. I believe that people identify red flags. So they'll be lying if they don't. So I think what happened is that sometimes your void to connect and your void to want to fulfill something can be so great that you take those red flags and you interchange them for white flags. And then you say, okay, let me give you the grace. Because maybe you didn't mean to make that mistake. Maybe you didn't mean to not have integrity dealing with this issue. So let me take the red flag that should be a warning and exchange it for this white one, because, see, you remember you keep repeating Micah 6 and 8 to me that I'm supposed to love mercy. And so what happens is for those who have a void, like the void that I had is I was single for 3 years, and I'm like, I don't want to just be with anybody, because there were tons of guys that was interested, but there weren't too many people that could teach me and lead me, because I felt like I was able to explain and knew more of the scripture than they were. And I was like, that's not going to be beneficial. So when the opportunity was presented to fill a void that I had, that was a huge void from a broken place, again, that was connecting to my childhood, all I wanted to do was get the truth, and I wanted to do it in a way that it did not provoke hate in doing so. I just wanted to just live Torah. And so that was what was offered to me. So the question was the void. So we all had need. We had an exchange of, so to speak. So before we even entered into anything intimately, he and I had a conversation. I'll use my own personal experience. And I said, okay, this is the need that I have. I would like to be taught. I would like to make sure that if you see me doing something that's not right, you correct me and give me some feedback on my life. I said, I have children. I want to make sure that they grow up keeping Torah. So if you could help me, make sure that I'm doing the right thing with them. And in exchange, then now we're talking marriage. Because for me, this is what we're looking for in our home. Cherie has made it very clear to me that she's looking for someone who has the opposites of what she has. So it never came across as being disingenuous initially. It almost came across as being very contractual. And so that's how it initially came. And what made me kind of put on the brakes a few months later is when I could no longer exchange the red flags for the white ones or the yellow ones or the pink ones or the purple ones. I ran out of colors. And now what I have to identify as a red flag is simply a red flag. What do I do with that? So as I began to separate on a personal level, because that's where I was at, I still was trying to hold on a business level, because in my mind, I was under the impression that the connection was spiritual. And it was a mission that we were trying to accomplish that Yah had set both of us on. And so the void that I had and the need that needed to be met on the other end became very contractual. And as I began to leave the situation on a personal note, I quickly got reminded how, you already made an agreement, even though it was verbal. And so because I could not read the language for myself, I only assumed that what was saying was true. So I said, well, I guess I got to figure this out then. And so that's what made me stay a bit longer. But the truth of the matter is when people identify those red flags, they still continue to stay for whatever their reason is, whether it be good or bad. At some point, it's not a his fault. It's not a my fault thing. Because I would say I should have known better, but I won't say that. And I'm not going to say he should have known better, because I won't say that. What I have identified is that people do what they want to do. You're either going to keep Torah or you're not. It's not something you have to convince people to do. Unfortunately, when you meet people, you're not going to be able to identify that until you are around them long enough to be able to visualize that. And by that time, the scars may have already been too deep. The wounds may have already been too crucial. And so now you're at a point, here we go back to a breaking point of what then happened. And so for me, mine was, let me just go ahead and put a few things out here, because there's some talks going on, because I was, as I've been told, my pictures and the video that he and I made have now floated around the community, because he and his wife has decided that's the best way to get me back. But what they don't realize is that you can't embarrass someone who doesn't regret anything they've ever done, especially when I thought I was doing it in righteousness. That's the first thing. So I'm going to go back to whose fault is it? It's partially my fault for not being intelligent enough, more research, more studied enough in the culture so that no one can tell me what the culture is about. I have to take that. Because I have books, I have internet, I have research, I can reach out to people. I didn't take into account of that myself because I trusted that the information I was going to be given was correct. So I have to take that part of it. I can't take all of it because it's never a woman's job to lead a home. It's a man's job. And being that I didn't reach out initially, and being that I wasn't covered, I was being covered spiritually. Being that I was being covered on a personal level, I just assumed that that would be his job and that he would do it. And so here is where the trust is built. And that's what it is, I think, for most people and most relationships. But let's talk about the positive things and how do we fix it? What do we do now? Because it's not just one. And you're right. Although we're talking about my personal testimony, which was already made public a week or two ago, this is definitely not the platform to say, let's just all gang up and hate on him. What I am saying is that in the midst of everything, of people trying to identify what's right and what's wrong, if you sit and look at the evidence on both parts, because people lie all the time. Everybody, people. You sit back and then you make a judgment call. Because what will happen is the situation that's happening to me right now. He did an awesome message last year, and it's called something about plead. I have to go back and look it up. He did a message about women speaking up and women pleading, and essentially what it was talking about is an account that if it wasn't for a woman that spoke up, the Most High wouldn't have made an amendment to hear her request to a law that was already established. And so he talks about and encourages, and it appears that he encourages women to speak up. But here it is, a situation that I have, and I guess it applies to everyone but him. Because now that I've spoken up with the cause, nobody is now around. Now he won't even address it. And so it kind of is disheartening. But what it has caused on the positive end is when I tell you so many people have continued to reach out to me, because what I did not realize, although I hid the video, because it was not for a public show, women reached out to me and said, thank you for having the courage to say that, because here is my situation. I've had women from ISUPK, women from IUIC, women that are dealing with men from GMS, women that are dealing with people in the ministry, women that are dealing or have been in situations with people that are in these situations now saying, I can't even get the courage to do any of what you just did. And I applaud you, and I tell people, don't applaud me, because I didn't do this for like some type of standing ovation. I did this because I had to. Because if I'm not the voice, then who's going to be the voice? All I ask that is right judgment be done in the midst of the times that these things happen. So if people are going to be elders, they need to be elders all the way through the line. If you're going to keep Torah all the way. If you're going to be shiesty all the way. So when people start to see red flags, know which ones to separate, know which ones to say, I'm going to take that red one and then switch it out to a white one. Because there is a time for us to forgive. It's one thing when someone makes a mistake. It's another thing when somebody does something so much of it becomes their character. You got to know the difference. You got to know the difference. And so although this came at a very inopportune time for me to share this information, it's not like I'm sharing that I've just got through winning an award for baking a pie. No, by no means. This is this is nothing to go put, and brag about. But unfortunately, this is something that has happened. This is something that I am now getting almost, I think they're trying to shame me for it. I think I have been told to get over it. Yeah. I've been told to stop being a drama queen. I've been told get over it and stop talking about it. I've had one person today to tell me, you just going on and on and on with it. But those are the same people that don't have any idea as to what's going on because they don't have all of the information. Because even though I've spoken on so much, there's so much that I have not spoken on. And so for me, in my walk, it doesn't just affect me. It affects everyone that's around me. So then it just pushes me, it's going to push me even further to help more people, which is why there's the Women Hebrew Literacy class that I've teamed up with the Paradigm Crew to put together. These men go out of their way now because they know all the details. Now they do. They said, if men act this way based on Hebrew, because in their mind that has to be on day it could be. then we're going to teach a whole bunch of women, because you cannot be that upset over Hebrew.
They sure did. Yeah,
so now I'm on a mission.
And they're doing an amazing,
excellent,
praiseworthy job. I mean, I've never seen so much commitment, like literally 24 hours a day. There's one of these brothers available, answering questions, giving guidance, giving resources, making videos. I mean, answering every tiny, minute question of what must be. Are we up to 100 women in this group? So,
yeah.
To the point that we had to close the group. They literally had to close the doors because there was so much excitement and there were so many women that, again, we're talking about there's a need and a void. And so women are gravitating to where there's a space where it looks like somebody wants to help. And I'm going to interject there. So I know there's so much more.
No strings attached to this. See, that's the thing. There's no strings attached with them helping.
Right. And it's very, I mean, the sincerity is, it's very clear. They're very transparent. They'll, if you send them a request, they'll add you right away. You inbox them, they answer right away. If they can't get to you right away and there's a delay, they apologize for the delay and then still answer your questions. I've seen that myself, so I can attest to their availability and their sincerity and their the fact that they're interacting. And they're very professional. Again, like there's no side flirting. There's a very, and with everyone. There's transparency. It's a very nurturing, very inspiring environment. And so, not to gush endlessly over them, but it's just that it's easy to give acknowledgement where it's due.
Right.
And I mentioned that, and I apologize for interrupting you. But I want to build on some of the things that we're seeing happen, because I like your idea, the imagery that you're giving of there are red flags, and we have the tendency to trade them out for the flag that's more convenient for what we want to see. If the red flag isn't convenient for what we want to see, so we'll grab another flag until we're just out of flags and out of colors. And I think that I want to add to that image. I would add to that image that sometimes we get the red flag and we bleach it. Like, we're not even going to find another flag. We're going to bleach that one. And we're going to make excuses. We're going to pretend it isn't red. We're going to call it something else. And we'll we'll turn it into that group. Get the Clorox and we'll bleach that red flag. And we've done that in other spaces. And what I and Muna have, and I'm sure many others, but I work with Muna, so I'm always referencing her because I partner with her on everything. And I know what she does. So what we do, and what we've seen very often, is we talk about the way the women, that we tend to reimagine our spaces, and we redefine our spaces according to what we're familiar with, what we're comfortable with in those moments. And these are some of the maladaptive ways that we respond to a need, to a trauma, to an injury, because we don't want to admit that we're hurting or we're lacking in these spaces. And so we fill it up with other things so that we don't have to look at it and we don't have to deal with it. But what I want to talk about a little bit is the idea that the men or women who are in these spaces, they have an obligation to keep it 100 with us. They have an obligation to have integrity. And that's why I really can appreciate what the Paradigm Crew does, because they understand the tremendous burden of leadership. They understand that. So one of the things that I heard you mention that Ron may have done a podcast or a lesson on women who brought a concern and then a law was introduced based on that concern. And that brings to mind the 5 daughters of Zulafa had this idea of inheritance, and it wasn't yet such a thing on the books. Even Moshe was perplexed as to how to answer this petition. And so he goes and petitions the Creator, and then it goes on the books that yes, a daughter can inherit from the father, where originally there was no such law in the book. So we do see women petitioning on their own behalf, advocating on their own behalf, and then the Most High backing them up. I was telling you in that conversation with this gentleman
does call you a drama queen, and he literally tells you to get over it. To get over it. When you tell a woman who is sharing a testimony of sexual abuse, when you tell a woman who's telling you that her children have been affected by this, and it's not just about her, and you tell the woman to get over it, there's a diminishing of the abuse there. You tell the woman it's not that we're saying as a community that we're not going to deal with the issue. We're going to silence the alarm. And that's one of the things that we also talk about, and Moon and I also talk about, that this movement to silence the alarm. When the women are crying out, when wisdom is crying out, when the wailing women are saying something is wrong, when we are mourning in the streets, when we are that car alarm at 3 a.m. waking everybody up, and yes, uncomfortable, yes, it's inconvenient, but when someone is breaking into your car, you want that alarm to work. You don't want it to get over it because you need a couple of more hours of sleep. We don't do that. If you don't want the women to complain about sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, we deal with the abuser. And then they don't have to cry out. Then you don't have to worry about the drama. The only time we get to be queens is when we're drama queens. This is unacceptable. We need to be able to check our leadership. Our leadership needs to know that it's not okay. And the men and women who are rallying behind these people because they want to have this R. Kelly mentality of protecting who they are, that's not okay. According to Torah, you examine all parts of it. If you feel like there's something that needs to be proven, you're not willing to accept the testimony, you don't ignore the testimony, you test the testimony. And if there's something there, then you have to go and you have to deal with the person that's being accused. And if it's Ron or anybody else, I'm not saying this because we're talking about Ron. I don't have anything against Ron with any person. Well, actually, apparently he has a problem with me. But up until these recent days, I had no reason to suspect any of that. And for no reason other than what Amun and I do, we go against bad information. We don't go against people. We don't go against leaderships. We don't go against ministries. But we do go against bad information. You know, I'm saying that the leadership has to be accountable for what they are teaching. Amun, I say all of the time, there are a lot of things that we never bring to the forefront because we understand that there are consequences to bringing forward something that isn't completely developed and not something that we can assure the people is of the Creator, and this is where we're going to go, because we know the people will listen. The people might not check, and then that falls back on us. But we don't see that happening with the leadership enough. And one of the other things that I'll stop here and see if maybe Amuna heard other things, but here's one of the other things that stood out to me. That the men, and there was a little bit of this in the testimony that we heard with the Sister Sephora, that the men are putting themselves in some of these doctrines instead of the Most High. That you need me to cover you. You need me to teach you. That you can't get to the other side of your relationship with the Creator without me. And you must do this with me. And we don't see our patriarchs doing that. We don't see our ancestors doing that. We don't see any of them putting themselves instead of the Most High with the women. The women have their own relationships with the Most High, and the men expect that relationship. And then they respect that relationship. And if they have a problem with what she has to say, they go and they beseech the Most High. They don't pull out their genitals and say, I overrule you. That's not what's happening. But in all of these spaces, a common denominator in many of these spaces, I don't believe in absolutes, but in many of these spaces, what I have observed is that we have leadership putting themselves in the stead of the Most High instead of remembering they are the stewards of His law, statutes, and commandments. They are not. They cannot. They don't become the door, and that's very dangerous. And they find when they come across women who are sincere. In case of male leadership, when they find that the women are sincerely seeking, then that becomes a liability to the woman, because the man is like, that's an opening, I can get in there. Because she's looking for something, and it's like they find that as the loophole. There's all kinds of doctrine women begin to accept, because as the sister said, they don't know the Hebrew. They don't know where to research or how to parse the scripture or what to dissect or where to go with it. And so they trust that the man has done the research and is not going to lead them astray. And so the man is playing almost he said, I don't know, what's the name of that game where they have the 3 shells and they're hiding something in there?
Three-card Monty. Three-card Monty?
Is that called three-card Monty where they're hiding something underneath one of the shells or one of the cards, where they're switching things around, and they play that game with you? I thought it was three-card Monty, but I guess in my head I'm thinking it's under like little shells. But that's one of the things that I was listening for. This idea that there's a deficit in the doctrine, or something is wrong in the doctrine, where you have a doctrine that tells you it's not okay to question leadership. Don't ask any questions. You have those kinds of leadership that tell you don't ask any questions. That's a red flag. That's a neon red flag with dripping red Kool-Aid juice on it. It can't get any redder. If you cannot ask any questions, this is a problem. If the leader is in the stead of the Most High, this is a problem. If there's a doctrine that puts the male genitalia in the place of, or in the ability to make things happen, and this is how all things come. You are very dangerously on some track to, what should we say, phallic worshiping. Everything is the man's genitalia can Tesla change you into the prophetess. With only the D you get married. All you have to do is come on to me, and this is how you get salvation. You can't get to salvation except through me. These are very dangerous dialogue. And we talk about the Mona like the Mona is the first to ever do it. But we have doctrine right here that tells you, no, don't go to outside sources if you're being beaten on. Don't call the police. You don't want to subject the righteous Hebrew man to the wicked authorities. Meanwhile, he's busting your head open and he's choking you out, but you shouldn't go to quote Esau on this, because that wouldn't be righteous. Women are crying out, you tell her to be quiet because she's a drama queen. We keep telling you to reveal wickedness, but then when women stand up and try to reveal wickedness, the community tells her to be quiet. Don't say that. Why are you bringing it up now? How much of this is your fault? We have to be each other's keeper and be very, very responsible, because this idea that we belong to camps, or we belong to congregations, that we belong to Knesset is wrong-headed. We belong to the Creator. Israel is the nation, and we are the people of the Most High. Not your general, not your captain, not your moray, not your elder, not your ministry, not your all these other very impressive titles that men and women have endowed themselves with. Your rabbi and the like. We're supposed to be the people of the Most High, and if you hear that there is abuse in your group, in your circle, in your what have you, then that needs to be checked, and it doesn't need to be explained away.
So how do we do those things? Amuna, how do we start to move away from a dependency that is so detrimental that we're bleaching flags, that we're so in need of some kind of physical representation of the Creator that we're willing to overlook. It's something that we are in some places in need, and some places we don't know how to reward. And this is not a reflection on the sister on the panel. I'm saying this about women in general because I said it to sisters in my own life, my own family even, and in my friendships with women. We have, in many cases, gotten to the place where when someone is good to us, we don't know how to handle it, and we reward them with our bodies. And we don't have to reward good behavior or righteous behavior with our bodies. If it's righteous, then it's righteous. They don't get, the prize for that. And a promise of marriage is not marriage. Anything that you have to keep secret is dangerous. We learn this as children. And we come into the truth, we unlearn the things that we unlearn too many things. We're supposed to unlearn certain things, and that's true. But sometimes we unlearn safeguards. So Amona, we talked about leaning on elder women. We talked about leaning and coming to our elders and asking questions. So what other ways can sisters and brothers safeguard against falling into trappings? Because these men are following other men into bad behavior or feeling disempowered in certain spaces because certain men have more influence. We just read that John Action said you don't even have to have authority. If you have influence, you can become a very powerful and dangerous person. So what are your thoughts about those things, about power, about influence, about integrity, and about how the membership can protect themselves and become just back on a correct and healthy track?
All right. I feel like I want to say thank you for those who've just joined us.
Why not?
Yeah, thank you for those. It's hard to break out of old habits. Thank you for those who've just joined us. You tune into Under the Palm on Debate Talk for You, hosted by Sister Mayana Hassofaret. We are the panelists. The title of the show is Wolves in Shepherd's Clothing. We do have a comment on the comment board. I will answer the question and then ask the comment from Kyle, or the question. Again, I'm just going to say what, the one song that I got to sing, which is healing. we have to realize that some of the things that I expect of people don't just miraculously appear. These are personality traits. These are character flaws. These are things that have been embedded in the individual since childhood. And the large majority of the people who are coming into the truth, in my estimation, came from somewhere else. When they came from somewhere else or another belief system, they were still them. And so what happens is that when you come over into this space, you begin to mask those things that in other spaces were not acceptable. And then you get to pass them off. You get to reimagine them, or you get to upcycle them into, this is my righteousness, you know what I'm saying? Or this is my zeal, or this is, and then, because of the way in which people are interpreting the culture, it becomes acceptable. So I would say education, as it relates to what we're expecting, having more conversations such as this so that people are not jaded, because that's what's happening when you move from one space that you felt like you've been betrayed in, and oftentimes other religions, Christianity, this and that, you're looking to run into the arms of a people that's going to console you, because you're grieving that, you've been separated from something that you believed was true. You're in pain, you're hurt, you're grieving, you're looking for comfort. And so when you're doing that, when we come into this next space, surely the wolves that were over there can't be over here. You know what I'm saying? Because if they are, then where am I running to? And what we do find is that at first we're like, and this is why people get even more hurt on this side, because it's like, okay, I knew something was kind of off, but you got the truth. So we don't have to. It's beneficial for us to be real. to be honest and truthful, that the person who knows a little bit more than you because they were studying a little longer than you are your brother and your sister. You know what I'm saying? When you look at somebody like they're all the way elevated above you, the danger is you put them on the pedestal. The danger is that you're going to fall on your face because they have not, chances are, through my experience, the process of cleansing, the process of soul repair, the process of purification, it doesn't come through book knowledge. It doesn't come through how many verses you know. It doesn't come through how long you've been in the truth. It comes through actual application, actual self-analysis, actual purging, actual changing, making new neural pathways. You know what I'm saying? Letting go of all habits. That's not easy to do. So for anybody who jumps up and says, because I know all of these scripts, you should follow me, I think we're looking for the wrong things. Because even when they were looking in the time of Moshe, and it says, look for the elders, it gave qualities that we are to look for. As some would say, the fruits of the spirit. These are things that we should be observing to see whether or not the person embodies that. Secondly is redefining, or first defining and then redefining what we think leadership is. Again, knowing a few scripts is not leadership. That's knowing a few scripts. You understand what I'm saying? Being able to say, you know, being honest and being transparent and being able to be reachable, connectable. I'll tell a short story and then I'm going to come to the question. This is when you ask yourself, where was the first model? Where did you learn about leadership? Was that leadership that you learned from functional or dysfunctional? Were they dysfunctional and you made excuses as to why they weren't functional? Because when we have that first example of leadership, that in our mind, if we say the word, everyone is going to have a different thought of what it is. Therein lies the problem. You see what I'm saying? Because most times our guardians, our parents are our first example of what leadership looks like. And then we begin to gravitate to these type of individuals. When I was a young girl in New York, and then I'm going to come to the call and then give it back to Sister Mayana. I remember in elementary school, you know, walking home from school by yourself, right? Your parents are at work, your brother. I went to a different school from my brothers. And so my school was on the other side and their school was on the other side. So I basically had to walk home. And I'll never forget, this is why I take responsibility and even speaking with people or saying that you're leading someone very seriously. If you ask somebody, like, I'm very overly cautious, and anytime I see somebody being reckless, you know, it really troubles me. And so I had to be like 7 or 8 years old, and you know, your parents tell you don't cross the street in the middle of the street. This is New York. Don't cross in the middle of the street. You either cross at the light on either end of the block. So this particular day, I forgot the name of the sister, but we're walking home from school. And again, you children, so you don't listen. I'm in front and I cross the street from behind the car, you know, car parallel park. So I cross the street in the middle of the block. And you're looking both ways. You don't see a car. You zoom across the street. The person behind me, who was trusting that I'm crossing the street, so it's good for them to cross the street, boom, gets touched by the car. I never forgot that. I never, ever forgot that. That is my example of leadership, where when you're crossing that street, it's not just you. And you are responsible to a certain degree if the people behind you are trusting your lead and you're darting out and you're on the other side talking about, I'm good, you good. It doesn't work like that. If you assume that space, if you come into that space and saying, hey, I have some information for you and you should, you know, listen or give ear to what I'm saying, you better source that information. You better take responsibility for the part that you play. In the person ultimately has to choose, but you also are responsible. And the greatest example that we have for this, or one of the greatest examples, in Bereshit Genesis, where you see Adam was the leader, and Kawa Eve is the person who was supposed to be adherent. So when the issue arises, the first person the Most High returns to is Adam. What's going on here? And the example that we're experiencing in leadership today is the very thing Adam said. It's not me, it's her. So to say today that we're surprised that the blame is shift. That's exactly what we do when leadership has gone awry, when leadership does not really take their responsibility to heart. They look to shift blame. So I would say, I took you around the world to come back to this point. Look for leadership who shifts blame. That will give you a indication that that might not be the people that you want to subscribe to necessarily, or at least in the capacity that will cause you to be in harm's way. You see what I'm saying? And shout out to the sister. She was okay. She got tapped. You know what I'm saying? She didn't get hit down and roll over. But shout out to the sister, and my apologies many umpteen years later for that. You know what I'm saying? But Kyle says, at what point is there separation between a failed potential union and a person with bad intentions? At what point is there separation between a failed potential union and a person with bad intentions? I would say, is it a general question? Because it seems like, is it a question as it relates to the discussion that's being had, or do you want just a general answer? So Kyle, I would ask that, do you want a specific, or do you just want an overarching general response to the question that you asked? And with that, I'll give it back to Sister Mayana.
For that, I just popped into the YouTube side under the palm, and I was looking at everyone's greetings and everything. I do want to address Kyle's question. I want to say, first of all, and I'll repeat it because I'm reading it now. At what point is there a separation between a failed potential union and a person with bad intentions? A person with bad intentions, I would say, would take a potential union into a realized space, knowing that they would not go all the way with it. For example, a potential relationship is one that doesn't include intimacy, hasn't met the family, hasn't done all of these other things, knowing that they have no intention of actually realizing any of the things that they are doing the performance of. You don't have sex with someone that you're not going to be in a relationship with. You're taking it out of the potential space and put it into a promise space. And so I would say that that's where you separate it. And especially if the other person is in a position of power, authority, or influence. Like, for example, teacher-student relationships are universally discouraged because there's an idea of a power imbalance between the teacher and the student, and so it's universally discouraged. There's the idea that potentially the student is enamored with the position of the teacher, or the teacher could possibly use their influence and power to coerce or compel the student into a space that they would normally go into. We have Exodus 22 and 16 that talks about enticing. So often this word enticing is kind of overlooked to get to this other result. But this word entice in Exodus 22 and 16 is key, because entice is never a place in all of Scripture where enticing is a good thing. Enticing means that you brought the person from a space where they would have been able to have the agency to make decisions, and you pulled them from that space, and they made a decision they would have not made ordinarily. They were enticed, seduced, or compelled into this other space where they would not have been. And that's where that intentionality becomes something ugly. And that's where it separates. So if this is not a potential thing and it has become a promise thing, then I would say that's where the separation can be marked. And I hope that answers your question. But we have 3 callers waiting, and I would like to get to those callers. But thank you so much for your question, Brother Kyle. And you're always into these conversations. Thank you so much for showing up to our YouTube version of the show. We really appreciate you. Sal, can you open up the phone lines for our other listening audience members?
Hey, Shalom, this is Ariel. So I was listening in, and it was a great show. have to kind of look at how the person who's doing the hiring would go about with like their interview. I see a lot of women these days, and I came across and I deal with a lot of women who go through certain issues like this, because they know becoming to ask, okay, well, what do I do with this guy? And I'm like, I got to figure out what status they're in the sense of, okay, well, how far did you go? Did y'all end up getting intimate, or are y'all just talking, or are y'all just courting, or whatsoever? So I have to figure out what part are they in. But I have to lay out a certain blueprint or whatsoever. You have to treat it like a business. Marriage, at the end of the day, is similar to like a business. You know, you do have a tool which is similar to like a contract, which, you know, business people will go through a contract or whatsoever. So if you're taking it like that, you want to go first to interview the person. You want to make sure, well, actually, the first thing that you'll do is look at their resume. You want to see their resume, you see their interview, and then you'll bring it to the interviewing process. Once you go through an interviewing process, or whatsoever, where you're trying to figure them out, trying to you know, see what their intentions are, how they can make the business grow, how they can, what they can bring to the business, or whatsoever type of skills or assets that they may do that you may be able to apply to the business or whatsoever. And then you'll go about a probation period. Every business comes into a probation period. Then after the probation period, you have you then offer them benefits, okay, from the company or whatsoever. And the exact same thing works into marriage. If you actually look at marriage, that's like a business business. Sorry, I'm in dad mode right quick. I'm sorry, but if you go about like in that type of stance, you want to go. You know, a lot of people, I know there's a lot of women or whatsoever, they don't do background checks. All business do background checks. Whether you want to, and the thing that they look for in the background check is who was your last employer, right? So when you go through the last employer, and I'm not saying that you have to go through and you have to go through the last person who they've been with or whatsoever, but you know, you want to go through the last employer. You might want to talk to the ex and see what caused them to break up, even ask the person who you're potentially trying to come to be with, why did you leave? You know, what was the issue or whatsoever. So you can kind of get an idea of what you're actually getting into, because a lot of women, they'll off of that give out the benefits. Like we have to extend the benefit package and then hire. You know, but once you get the benefit package or whatsoever, then we have to use your imagination to understand what I'm talking about business packages. But once they offer that, you need to literally step back and be like, you know, okay, now I'm done. You know, I don't really want you no more, or I'm done. I already got my business packages and stuff like that, or I already got my health care and all that stuff like that. So I'm good on it, because I don't really want anything else. I don't want to be committed to your company now. And I see a lot of people get caught up into that, or a lot of women get caught up into that, or a lot of people actually get caught up into different congregations because of that. They don't do the background. I really think that the background is very important to try to figure out, you know, different red flags or things. Or can I? Okay, I see that this might be an issue or something like that, but can we work with that? I can't work with that, so we might want to end it. It'll save a lot of time. It'll save a lot of investment. Save a lot of money. You know, and we can go on to the next person and stuff like that. So we have to treat this. We have to treat when you're being committed with somebody, or you're being married to somebody, as if, or you're thinking about marriage with somebody, you know, as if it was a business, you know. And you know, I just wanted to kind of put that little touch into that. Hearing that y'all are getting more into like trying to choose or trying to follow somebody and make sure that they're not trying to lead you astray, or they don't have a good agenda behind it, or they're not trying to come in and sabotage what you got going on in your life. You know, but yeah, that's all I really have to say about that.
No, don't go anywhere. I mean, you made a lot of noteworthy assertions. I have my own opinions about some of the things that you said, but I see that Amuna wants to weigh in a little bit, so stay with us. And Amuna, the mic is yours.
Woo. Brother Mario, Brother Mario said, you said a lot. I kind of want to just address some of the things, the responsibility that in this day is on the feminine principle, as you were saying, that she should do certain things. But if a lot of people are coming to the narrative Hebraically, Eastern mindset, and there were certain safeguards that were in place for her to protect her, because naturally when she gets into a space of emotionally connected, emotionally, she's going to more often than not miss, or as our sister said, recolor certain things. And so the safeguards that are in place, the family that is in place, those who are in place to begin to do this and aid her in this diligent inquiry are missing. And the men, in honesty, are taking advantage of that. If you know as a man that you are looking to be with someone's daughter, you don't necessarily try to kick game to that person's daughter. You go and speak to the masculine principles who she is currently under, her father, her brothers, her uncles, those who are going to check you as a man. But because the man knows, like Sister Mina said, the scripture that comes up, there's a level of seduction that the Torah speaks of. And the man is aware that if I can get into your mind, I have you. And that is unrighteous, because Hebraically, Eastern mind, you couldn't just run up on her and say such and such and such and such, and you're going to be my Isha. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I hear what you're saying, but if we're going to take it back, then we need to take it all the way back, because this is how a lot of women are being seduced out of their right mind into spaces believing what he said, because it's her inclination towards believing what he's saying. And she's being exploited. I'm talking about in general. When you look across the landscape, when you look across social media, when you listen to the stories, in some places the women is like, oh, I'm going to look for my Boaz. So let's just keep it on one place. They're looking and searching out and finding these men. But in another space, when they're not looking for these men, and the men are coming and shooting game in their air and telling them, you're going to be my Isha, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, talk to my father. Oh, yeah, not yet. You know what I'm saying? Come around. Oh, no, it's all good. That's the setup. And by the time she's already in, she's in. And then the only thing that happens after that is she's hurt. So the brothers do have more responsibility for the way in which they're approaching the daughters of Zion. So that's why I would say I would disagree where the onus is fully put on her. If these brothers are righteous, if they're righteous, then the onus is on the masculine principle to not put the feminine principle in a compromising situation. So with that, I wanted to address the property thing, but we'll probably make a show of it. That sounds like a show idea. Sister Maya.
I wanted to kind of make clear that I was really mainly because I absolutely agree with the whole you have to go to the Father thing. I was getting more at usually when a lot of this that will come to me about that, or they ask me about that, they're usually by themselves. So they mean they kind of disown for the family because it's the fact that they sell out of Christianity or whatsoever. So they're kind of like, okay, well, I'm not really going to go to my father about this, or I'm not going to go to my person in my family, or maybe the father or whatsoever just really doesn't care what they're doing, because I do see a lot of fathers who are not in Torah, but they just don't really care about they mainly are just about, okay, well, I want whatever my daughter wants, so I'm happy with whatever she is. She could bring home a bad dude, and he will be perfectly fine as long as she's happy, I'm guessing. So and yeah, you're absolutely right. It does hold more to the masculine. So we do need, as a man, to actually be able to mold our daughters or whatsoever, or help choosing in our daughter. Because yes, you're absolutely right. In the Saxonic Eastern, especially mainly Eastern cultures, so whatsoever, you have to go. The women had nothing to really do too much to even with picking the husband. We see in that Eastern culture there's a lot of arranged marriages in the first place. So it has a lot to do with that. But if you're just so happen to be caught up into this type of society that we're in mean, it can work whether you're trying to, remain in Torah or just individual by yourself. Just kind of you don't really have any figures or anybody to go and look up to. I would say just go about it like that. But yeah, if you have that father figure in you, or you are second generation Hebrew, then yes, allow that father or your brother or elder take that role as far as like picking and listen to. Because of men, one thing I like to push is that men know men. Just like much as women know women, men know men. We know how we are. So if we see a brother who's like, yeah, you might not want to. That's why I was saying a lot of women will come to me because I keep it 100. Like I've been saying, I like, okay, you might not want to deal with him, but yes, he might want to deal with him. Because I know how men are, and I know that men will pray. Even in the secular world, men will pray for the weakest woman. And if you see a woman who's like extremely vulnerable, and I learned this actually, I watched what's the movie with how you hit that, the how you hit the acrimony, and you can kind of see like that whole aspect of she wasn't listening to her family or whatsoever too much, or she was allowing like the women to kind of make her judgments or whatsoever, and she kind of went off her own feeling. So you can't really depend too much on y'all because, like the whole says in number 30, y'all can't be opposed. Y'all can't get into y'all feelings and stuff like that. So I would say when you have a man, or you have a righteous man, or you have a man that you can trust that will actually look out for your protection, listen to that guy as well. Listen to him because he's going to give you the best advice possible because he actually does care about you. Whether he's in Torah or not, you find somebody who actually wants the best for your life and then ask, get advice and get clarity from him. Was like, okay, this guy, like, so that's why I mean by doing like your background checking also. And I forgot to add also as well, like, and usually like in a business or whatsoever, like before they hire somebody, they will actually meet with a counsel, or they'll meet with like other people who's like, okay, what do you think about this guy? So that could be similar to that as well. Get a counselor to come in and think about, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about this guy? I like how he works. I like how he interviewed. I like how he did. We can give him a shot. Let's give him a shot or whatever. So yeah, I wanted to not what you just added this.
Well, thank you for calling in, and thank you for giving us some of the things to think about. Please do me a favor and go ahead and type for me in the chat, or maybe even on my wall, this number 30 verse that you're referring to. I'd like to get a look at that, and I'll probably respond to some of the things you said as I go to the next few callers. But again, thank you so much for coming through. But don't forget to put that verse on my wall for me. I'm going to ask that favor from you. I want to see what you're referring to. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you for that. So I'll keep calling in. Shalom, warrior. So who do we have behind door number 2?
Let's go to the next caller. 740-2 Shalom.
Shalom, welcome to the conversation.
This is Kyle. How y'all doing today, ladies?
Hey, shalom. You came out of the chat room and answered the call. Welcome. How are you?
Well. Like, I was just calling in. It's easier than not to type, just have an actual conversation, But just want to see, I understand everything that y'all saying. As a person that just a power, you have definitely a responsibility to do certain things a certain way, according to Torah. But when you're leading someone and you go up to that process, and like all the responsibility is placed on a guy, he's a great guy, he's a great leader, he's a great head, this honorable person, but when the person that you're courting is not. At what point, can you say, hey, I don't want to be involved with this more, And my second point is, like, what if, if both you eventually say, hey, maybe we can do something, or we can be intimate, and you find out later on, you shouldn't have, I've been in those situations before in the past. I've dated a woman, and and it felt like it was the right thing to do, but then later on, you're like, this is not it. And before the point where you're married and children are involved and there's other lives that you got to consideration, you could have lived back to this. And it sounds like that's not an option,
Right. We don't do buyer's remorse, Kyle. Like I said in response to your original, when you asked before, because it's a great question. You know what, you're right. This is real life, and these things happen all of the time. And again, we're keeping it very general because this is not about one person, one experience, or one testimony. This is a testimony of many people. We find ourselves in relationships, we put ourselves in conditions, and we go further than we should. But then the point here is that it's further than we should. We're supposed to put Torah first, be mindful of the Lord. For example, I'll give it to you this way. If a civilian does something, it's more egregious when the attorney does it or when the police officer transgresses the law, because the police officer is supposed to uphold and maintain it, and the lawyer is supposed to be well versed in it. So even the scriptures make a difference between unintentional and intentional sin. This is willful sinning. The police officer knows it's wrong. It's his actual sworn duty to not do this thing. The lawyer knows the law. It's his job to uphold, defend, or protect the law as well. So when the civilian does it, the lawyer can throw their hands up and go, I didn't know. No. But the person that knows, yes, we do put a bigger onus on the person that knows, the person that's teaching. Again, with a teacher-student relationship in the secular world, the teacher knows better, the teacher knows the rules, the student may not know. And there's an inequity there. And yes, there is a bigger onus, not on the masculine principle necessarily, but on the leader in certain situations. Now, in terms of the masculine principle, as Amuna said before, in our original culture, the masculine principle would not have been close enough to her to have an oopsie moment, to say, yes, I've inserted the D, I'm going to pull it out now, I don't want to do this anymore. You don't get that far. You're not supposed to get that far. We have a process. And when the process is not honored, that's when we start having these other conversations about, well, what if? The Torah protects us from the what if. The Torah is our immune system. It's our defense system. So that when we get ourselves in these uncomfortable disease spaces, the immune system kicks in and says, don't do that. Don't go that way. This is dangerous. Torah is that. Torah would tell you, don't insert D here. That's not your wife. By the time you've gotten that far into the relationship, you don't have these questions of, is this a good idea? You already know it's a good idea. You've planned for it. Consider this, and I'll, if you want to, and I'll bring the panel and of course the caller back into the conversation. Consider this. I was going to give you something to consider and then absolutely respond to it. Consider this in Torah. We see in Deuteronomy that when a man takes a wife, he's not to be charged with work or war for a full year. Now that sounds great, but it sounds like, okay, what's the big deal about that? The big deal about that is that work and war are the two ways that a man would have generated income. You're literally telling the man to not generate income for a full year. So what that implies is the man has planned for this union. He has saved for this union. He has to live off of whatever he has prepared in advance so that he can do what? Stay at home and make her happy, keep her comfortable, build bonds with her so that there's trust, that there's unity, that we're going to be able to raise right to seed. He's not going to work, not to war, not hanging out with his buddies. He has to live off of what he has prepared for. So that tells us that our Eastern mind, our original culture, taught the man to prepare. And he doesn't get caught out there in the oopsie, I changed my mind moment. This isn't going to work out for me anymore. So, hey, what you going to do? What are you going to do? He turns to the woman and says, what are you going to do? Because then this doesn't work out for me anymore.
I mean, I totally understand what your stance is. And I'm not talking about a situation with anyone in general at all. I'm talking about just like real life application of Torah, you know? Like, if you see this woman and she's beautiful to you. And as a man, you say, hey, you know what? I want to court this woman. I want to put her through the pony period. I want to see what she really is made about. And then 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, you know, you realize that, hey, maybe this is not going to be a situation for me. And so I need to get up out of this situation. This is just real life application. This is what the mission, you know, all that type of stuff is about. It's about how to apply for in real life under real life situations. And those things that we have to face. And you know, every person has a head wrap on ain't virgin. Every dude with fringes on ain't keeping Torah. They have on fringes, you know. And let's just be real about that. Like that doesn't mean you're a good person or not because you got on fringes or a head wrap. It means that you are trying to be in a culture that you may not be all the way up to par with. But what I'm saying is, just because you do certain things where you appear to be a certain way, you know that person, they may not be what you thought they were. And when is it acceptable, you know, and this is a general question, when is it acceptable to say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to marry this person, or maybe I want out of this situation before it gets to that point. That's what my question is for.
You make a great point about the fact that we're talking about real life. And we often say that, you know, the head wrap, the fringes, and all real life. But let's be honest. And the people that we're reading about in Torah, these are not fictional characters. They were all living real life. Torah is a practical thing. It's not abstract. It's not idyllic. It is practical. The Most High put these allow for these laws in place because they set standards. They set boundaries. They keep us in check so that we don't do the Shimshon, the Samson, oh, but she pleases me well. His mother says, is it never a woman of your own people? And Samson gives the answer of, oh, but she pleases me well. And what happened to him? Pursuing beauty, pursuing, well, let me just see how this works out. And he did exactly what we have our sister talking about, this idea of ignoring the flags. She goes to him, tell me the secret to your blah, blah, blah. And then he gives her a fake answer. She betrays him. He acts like that didn't happen and then does it again and again and again and ignoring all of these flags until eventually he gets tripped up in the snare that he allowed. And this other idea of beauty and vanity, this is a bad idea, chasing behind beauty and vanity. We don't get to test drive the feminine principle. We don't do that. We have conversations with the family. I know, like, I'm 43, but I'm like 1 generation, 2 generations away from my father who lived in the South. From the time when they said, who are your people? But these are real questions. It wasn't who are you. The question the elders asked was, who are your people? Because the idea is, if I know who your family was, will be the indicator of what type of woman you are, or what kind of young man you are. And so the families wanted to know about the families you came from. And that is the remnant, the residue, the echo of our original culture. We understood that we are not marrying individuals, we are marrying whole families. And when we stop remembering with the wisdom of Samson's mother, is there never any? Why do you think she said? Why do you think she asked? Is there never a woman of our own people? If it was at least a woman of our own people, she would have an idea of what this woman was about. When we see in Tobit speaks for his son, saying, listen, go find somebody of our people. There's a reason behind that. We're an endogamous people, not just because we're horrible, like racist or whatever people want to call us. We were an endogamous people because we understood that our internal immune system, our internal defenses was Torah, and we all had a commitment to Torah. We don't know what people outside the community have a commitment to. So that's why we kept it inside. That's why we built walls. We built walls. Pre-exilic, post-exilic, we liked walls, lots of walls. Because we know what was going on the inside, or what should be going on the inside of our communities. This idea of, well, what happens if after 4 months I don't like you anymore? That's not Torah. That's not pre-exilic, post-exilic. It's not Hebrew at all. You have not one Hebraic example of the brother with her for a couple of months and decided, this is not a good idea. You know, let's pretend this never happened. And it worked out for them.
That's not Hebraic. Judah tried that with Tamar, and when Tamar was like, "Yo, bro, it's you," he was like, "You know what?" He withdrew all charges because he knew he was in the wrong. This is not what we do. I understand that we're in 2018 and we're very much separated from where we were and our center in Torah and where we used to be and some of these mindsets that we still had just a generation or two ago. But that's bad. We can't rejoice in our separation. We can't rejoice in our distance from what's righteous in order to accommodate this new dysfunctional mentality. This mentality is dysfunctional. And I'll take this moment because I have another caller, we'll give it to the panel. I won't take up everybody's turn. But the other thing that Mario talked about is like, you know what? Let's test these brothers. I want to forward the start. Women don't have that kind of permission. Women were never socialized to test the waters. If a woman does too much testing, she gets a very bad reputation. Even if she doesn't open up her legs and engage in anything, just the fact that her name gets associated with too many other names of the men's names, then she gets a bad reputation just for having conversations and considerations of more than a certain number of men. So she doesn't have the same latitude that the man has to play oopsie. We have to remember that, and that's okay because, again, women were a protected space. I'm not trying to advocate for women testing a number of men. I'm trying to say that if the modesty standard is there, because we understand that testing men after men after men is what makes a bad reputation for a woman, maybe we should reconsider, let's revisit why we're so permissive socially for men to test drive the feminine principle. Because we have to understand that this has negative repercussions and really kind of rethink that. So stay on the line so maybe you want to talk to someone other than me. Amuna, do you want to talk to our brother Kyle? Do you have any feedback for he makes great points. I mean, we're living in 2018 and things happen. What's one to do?
They done got you riled up, Sister Mayana. I was like, man, the brother
already know.
The brother trying to play double dutch. He's like, I got something to say. Let me hear what Brother Kyle. I heard him trying to say something in addition. So before I put in my little 2 cents here, I'll let him finish up his thought. You had another thought, brother?
Honestly, I lost it a long time ago. I gotta be going in. I'm sorry.
My fault.
I think what I said something earlier, and I think I'll say it again, that we are the same people coming out of the quote world that transitions into this space. And some of the things that we try to bring over doesn't translate when we are going according to the text. And one of them is talking. When you're in the world, like, yeah, me and her talk, there's different levels of talking. Like when talking translates to filling up, that's no longer talking. And when you come over to this side, that's no longer acceptable. You don't get to feel up the produce, you know what I'm saying, to see whether or not it's soft, and I'm not even going to go any further. Children are up. So my point is that the man has a responsibility to realize that you will lessen your chances of the oopsie if you put a respectable distance between yourself and the female. You see what I'm saying? If you know that this is the direction that you're going in, then you go through the proper appropriate channels so that you won't be like, yeah, girl, so let's Netflix and chill. If you know you have an issue in that area, stop faking like you Bible studying at 12 o'clock at night. You see what I'm saying? These are the little things. You don't call the person at 11:30 talking about, yeah, turn to Deuteronomy. It's inappropriate. You put them in a space where you begin to respect them and show that respect so that even if you have gone in that space in other times, you won't be tempted to go there again. And so you won't, like Sister Mina says, you will lessen the chances of the oopsie. And if you are considering the person and you go 3-4 months down the line, then there's nothing to retract because you didn't commit yourself to anything and you didn't enter into any contract with them in any other ways with any other body parts. So it's like kind of using common sense, you know what I'm saying, returning to the thoughts of chaperone, returning to the thoughts of, a respectable distance, I will say, because again, people are grown, people have been in other spaces, and people are susceptible to things. Certain people are struggling in these very areas under their head wraps, their tzitzis, and their begadim. They're struggling in these areas. And so if you bring anybody too close, they might just jump on them. So if you know that's your issue, again, what I'm talking about, be honest. You know what I mean? Be honest instead of cloaking it in, you know, something else. And so that's what I would add to that particular portion of it, some real life advice for the women as well. We've heard situations where the woman is like, oh, you know, sis, what do I do? He invited me over for Bible study and now I'm his Isha. Like, this stuff really happens. This stuff really happens. And he convinces you that now you my Isha because the laying with the person makes her your wife. These are why we talk about these topics so often, because these are the things that trap people up. No, she's not. You know what I'm saying? Laying with the woman does not make her your wife. Stop lying. Tell me why you're lying. That's not true. You see what I'm saying? And so these are the things that makes when the breakup is public, the getting togethers, and, you know, there's no witnesses. We talk about witnesses. Where are the witnesses to establish the matter? These are the things that, you know, you don't go planting, you know, soil, planting, tilling the soil, and then be like, yeah, this is my land. How is it your land? Proverbially, of course, because Miranda doesn't like the land association, but you know what I'm saying? You get the point. So with that, I will relinquish the mic and give it back to you, Sister Mary.
So that was, I have nothing to add to that, Kyle. Obviously, if you're still on the line and you want to respond to that, sis, you can weigh in. Also, sis Safara, if you want to weigh in on some of the things that you have heard the caller say so far. I have another caller holding, but I don't want to cut this short prematurely. So, brother and sister, if there's anything you want to add before we go to the next caller, the floor is yours.
Well, I just want to say, first and foremost, I really enjoy every conversation that we have. I really, really appreciate you, with y'all. You know, I mean, I agree with everything we have discussed, or we'll discuss in the future. But you know, I appreciate point of view and it opens up my mind to a lot of different options. And that's also what I plan, you know, or hope to do to, you know, do ladies as well. Just be just opposing opinion that, you know, just hear it out of love. But I just think that we can't put all of the responsibility on a man, because a woman has also responsibility in the laying process. You know, if the plan or the idea or whatever was discussed, I feel like a woman has an obligation to herself and to her man, you know, to be righteous in her dealings with him, and he has that obligation with her. Do those boundaries get crossed and irregular? Yes, they do. They get crossed way too often, and you know, and it goes down, and it makes bad situations really quickly. And I feel like we can't demonize. Well, if you're gonna demonize the man for doing it, we have to demonize the woman for doing it too, because it takes two parties. You know, it's not like it's unconsensual. It's not that is, you know, he came over, got her drunk, and then had sex with her and said, hey, we married. You know, it's not like that. It's both parties was equally involved into this situation. And we have to really take a look and say, hey, maybe women as a whole and men as a whole need to reevaluate themselves. And if we're supposed to be teachers as men, and I never pretend to be a teacher or a leader or anything, I'm just a person that's on Facebook and got a stable job. But like, I try to deal as righteously as I can with women. And if a woman is dealing with me, I will hope she would deal with me as righteously as she possibly can. And if both of us things fit, we can move forward into the future to build something better. And that's that's my entire point. I think that we can't push out that responsibility and play the victim when we both went to the and take us around the back together, you know?
I hear your point. I'm going to disagree with you. And I'm going to disagree with you because Torah disagrees with you. In Exodus 22:16, the onus is on the person that's enticing. So there are situations where there is a definite victim. That's Torah. Exodus 22:16 says the man entices her. And so that would mean that he's in the position to tell her certain things that would make her or compel her to make a decision. It means it's consensual. This is Exodus 22:16 is not rape. Deuteronomy is rape.
Exodus 22:16 is consensual. He gains the consent of the female, but it's through these deceptive means. And that deception, because the reason why I thought your question was so profound and so important is because we talked about intentionality. And so when you have this kind of deliberate deception, when you have the person that is the one that's in the position of having information with the person who doesn't have information, there is a definite power dynamic at play. And when that is the case, there are things such as victims and predators. You have to accept that the person that has the information is in the predatorial position, unless, which is why I always tell sisters and I always tell the membership, when there's that kind of relationship, to level up. Don't get awed, don't get impressed. Level up so you can have a conversation with the person that you admire. Instead of just being in the peanut gallery admiring the performance, study up, have a conversation, research, ask good questions so that you can be a participant. And if that's not what happened, just because consent is in place doesn't mean that a victim, that the woman or the man can't become a victim. Whoever knows, whoever has that deliberate intention to entice is in the wrong. That's Torah. So it's not debate talk for you. It's not under the palm. It's not me, and it's not the women on this panel or others that are vilifying one party and not the other. Torah says there's a distinction here. The person that's enticing is in the wrong, and there's no second or third verse that changes that. Because the person that has enticed and and received consent out of order, he now has to go back to the parent and do what he was supposed to do. That's what has to happen. You don't get away with it. But I agree with you that there has to be a point where there's personal accountability, and that's why I keep advocating for the women to study on their own, so they're not waiting for their king to come and teach them. They're not waiting to be filled up. They're not coming into this husband's household incapable of contributing to it. None of our ancestresses did that. They came into these households fully whole, capable of running a household, capable of adding to that man, because they learned what they were supposed to learn at all of those previous stages. They didn't come in as a wife so they could be disorientated. And so that's why I want to say that you are making really, really good points, and it's important because this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. It's like, why is one person being found guilty and the other person getting to skate? And these are the kind of questions that happen when we have to look at these situations that come about when Torah wasn't put first. And we have to this lets me know we need to return to Torah. And it can't just be the leadership that knows Torah. The membership has to know Torah too, because these kind of questions happen. We're not willing to point at just one. And unfortunately, Torah does allow us to do that because it happens. There is an onus on one and not the other. Stay on the line because I'm sure you'll have more questions, and I love talking to you. I have one more caller behind you. And let that person on, but don't go anywhere. Just press 1 and Sal will bring you right back into the queue. Or stay on the line and Sal will open your mic if you have another question. Fair enough?
That's fair enough.
Total for calling in. Sal, who do we have behind door number 3?
Actually, we have 2 more people standing by right now.
Oh, okay, well, I'm about that life, let me.
95760.
Hey, ladies, hey, South Showtime. This is Brother Mercy.
Woo!
I have a couple things I wanted to say. I'm going to ask you a question at the end of my comment. I'm going to talk about, since y'all brought up Samson, I'm going to talk about the situation with Samson. I'm going to look at all factors real quick. Judges chapter 14, verse 3 and 4. And I'm going to show you what's problematic why Samson was picking his own wife. It says, his father and mother replied, isn't there except a woman among your relatives, among all our people? Must you go to uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Sam said to his father, get her for me, she's the right one for me. Then verse 4. His parents got no news from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. The last part of that verse is the most important part. At this time, they're being oppressed by the Philistines. So the parents are not picking the wives for their children. That's what's going on right now in 2018. This is why, in the case of Abraham, Abraham didn't ask Isaac, oh, is there any woman among our people to marry? No, he picked the wife. He didn't ask Isaac what he thought about it. Isaac had a hand-picked wife, and he really didn't have much to say about it. So this is the problem. His parents are not picking his wife. So therefore, before he meets, we skip over when we go to Delilah. But before he gets to Delilah, he sleeps with a prostitute. So you see, Samson is on the wayward because his parents are not doing their jobs. Now, understand, he got two parents. Now, a lot of people ain't got two parents, but Samson got two parents, but they're not selecting a wife. They're asking him to choose among the people of Israel. They're not choosing one for him, you know. So then, since it's up to him and he's a young man, he decides, oh, I'm just going to go willing. I'm going to do what the heck I want to do. So this is the problem in 2018. We got Samsons walking around who their parents are not selecting their wives. So what happens to young Samson, strong Samson? You know, now he says, oh, well, since my parents are not selecting one for me, I guess I'll make my choice myself. And I just wanted to point that out, that the parents and the family are not involved in this situation. That's why we're in the situation, you know, we're in. We've been oppressed. See, we got a government ruling over us, just like Samson did. So the prevailing problem is we're being oppressed. That's the overwhelming problem. Yeah, we could talk about marriage, and we could talk about why we're not getting the right wife, but then we really got to talk about why we're being oppressed. That's really what we got to talk about. Because if we don't get these people off our backs, we don't keep having the same problem over and over. But I just wanted to say that the oppression, what we're in, outweighs the other problems. And see, that creates other problems. Because if your parents are not choosing your spouses, or they're not involved in the evaluation process, then you're going to get what we're getting. And the biggest problem we got today, we got leaders, and like the guy came in with the business example, oh my goodness, he came with the family business example. That's a good example. But if you understand anything about a business, you're not the boss the first day on the job. You have to earn your keep. And, you know, you don't become a supervisor. You know, we say the man's the head. How is he the head? Has he earned that position? On the job, you earn the right to be supervised. You don't just go on the job, oh, I'm going to start ordering people around my first day. No. You work your way up the ladder. And then after people approve of your work ethics, then they say, oh, well, we might, you know, somebody else is deciding your leadership. So I think sometimes we give the men leadership authority that they haven't earned. So I just wanted to ask a question for the sisters. What is the problem with divine prospect? Because I was unclear about what happened with that, but I just want to know what happened with that. But that's it.
Well, that's quite a big question you tapped on there at the end. You did make some good points about some of the things that you were saying, and I want to see if there's anybody that wants to respond to some of the ideas that Mercy forwarded. And thank you for calling. We haven't heard from you for some time, so we're wondering where you were. But yeah, there's this idea that the men are making decisions by themselves. They're not consulting with elders. Elders are not playing their parts in these current situations. And so we're now lamenting that young people are making bad decisions, even though the elders are not inserting themselves in these spaces. We're trying to encourage young people to seek out the elders, but the elders themselves are not taking initiative and are kind of trusting young people to a space that historically they were not trusted with. So, Amuna, do you have, with regard to what's going on with Ron, and again, we don't want to make this particular segment all about Ron, but if you're curious, there is information on the sisters' page and Ron's page where they're discussing these things, and maybe off air, behind the scenes, if you want to get some ideas, we might be able to help you with that. But again, the show is not about
crucifying or highlighting Ron specifically. We have one of our sisters on who happens to have had an experience with this particular Knesset, but like she said, it's not her. Just her testimony alone has spurred a Me Too strain. Excuse me, has spurred a Me Too strain among our own community within. From IUIC, we've had people come to our platform several times lamenting that the leadership in IUIC is breaking apart families and the like. We have received letters. We recently received a letter from IUIC, and this incident with Kingdom Harbinger Ministries has also had people from IUIC, ICPK, and the like reaching out to the sister. So again, this is not about Ron. This is not about Kingdom Harbinger Ministry. This is about a mentality. This is about a behavior that we are seeing. This is about a very disturbing trend among those that have influence and authority. And we want to be very, very careful about how we proceed in the future. Amuna, do you have any comments for Mercy?
Long time no hear, Brother Mercy. Again, Mercy said a lot. Mercy said a lot. I don't even know where to start. I would just say, you know, there's a lot in what he said about what the real problem is, but I would say that some of these things were existing even when the people weren't oppressed, right? Which is, you know, intermittently throughout the history when Israel was in the land. These marriage issues, who Israel chooses to marry and the way in which Israel chooses to procreate has always been an issue. Exile, land, and I'm saying on the run. It has always been where, you know, even you just mentioned Judah's situation. Dawid running, taking this person, this Shlomo taking this person, that one. Even Gideon, who the Most High raises up, he has a concubine in Shechem, right? So the choices that the men of Israel historically have made, not being necessarily oppressed all the time, has a ripple effect throughout the nation. There's spaces where they did not listen to the elders, even if there were elders there. And then in recent times, the elders, we have to also consider that the elders may be wicked. The elders may be encouraging bad behavior. You see what I'm saying? And so we're talking about a human condition and a human problem. And as Brother Kyle was asking, well, what do you do with these human conditions and human problems? How do you fix it? How do you clean it up? And so that again, that's a conversation that we have to continue to have, teaching the children from young, understanding sexual energy, because this is the desire in the space of sexual energy, the desire to procreate, the desire, it's misplaced. And even in this society, more than other spaces, we're taught to misplace this. And when we do, it causes a whole host of problems. And miseducation is one of our problems. You know what I'm saying? Misuse of procreative energy, misuse of procreative responsibility is misplaced. So it's like we have to, like we're in elementary school again, and go back to the drawing board and to the table, because for a woman in that space, that means love. You love me because X, Y, and Z. And for the man, it's like, no, I don't have to love you to lay with you. You see what I'm saying? So you're having two different conversations, but the same act is taking place and it's having different implications. And so, again, I know I didn't address everything that Mercy said, but that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, that we have to really unpack what we're talking about when we're looking about the mess that we're looking at this time. And there is a mess. There is a huge mess, Sister Mayana. All right, I'll really kiss the mic. I believe Sister said her phone died. I'm not sure if she can come on. She said her phone died, and then she'll come back another time. And so I'll give it back to Sister Mayana.
Very well said, Amuna. I'm sure that Mercy would agree that you addressed a lot of his questions and concerns.
I believe we have another caller. I think this is door number 4. Who we got behind door number 4, Sal?
We have door number 4, door number 5, actually.
Oh,
Door number 4 first.
come in.
I don't hate 460 alive.
Shalom, sisters. How are you?
Shalom, little sis. How are you?
I'm doing okay, my big sisters. And let me give a shout out to Sal. Shalom, brother Sal. How you doing? First, my sisters, I've got to say this. I have to say this. Okay? My father and mother were married almost 50 plus years when my dad passed away. Okay? My dad was a backwoods country boy. Okay? Of Georgia. All right? And my mother and father, let me rephrase this. My grandparents, it was an arranged marriage. And they were married up until the day my grandmother died. And even when my grandmother died, my grandfather still said that he was married to one woman, and he died a widow, only being married to one woman. Okay? Now, like I said, my dad was a backwoods country boy. When he met my mother, they went through the stages of the parents, okay, going and talking to the parents. The parents had been having a chaperone when they went out, okay? Now, I'm not pointing no blame at nobody, and I want to make that clear, okay? Because it takes 2 to tango, okay? It takes 2 to tango, and it takes 2 to unpack that box, okay? But the brothers, you got to control your members which are upon the earth, okay? Because these brothers out there, they act like they cannot control their bodily functions. And the sisters, you got to stop falling prey to the mess and the nonsense, because that man is smiling up in your face. If you are in Yah and you are doing in Yah what you're supposed to be doing, you shouldn't even be out there looking. Okay, that means you're supposed to be so engulfed in the things of Yah and in Yah word and in prayer and in helping our family that's out there, that man got to find you in Yah. Okay, I'm not taking no sides on anything. I know what's going on. And I'm not taking no sides on anything. But what I'm saying is this. Stop trying to beat up the sisters and kicking them under the rug when you know you came after that woman. Okay? And that's for any of the brothers and sisters. All right? Now, perfect example. I had something that happened to me last year, and I spoke to Obi Love about it. Okay? This one brother, I had no idea that this brother was interested in me. All right? This brother he's sending me messages through the DM, okay? And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, we're going to pray for your father. I think his father was having some type of surgery. We're going to pray for your father. And how's your father doing? And is he getting better? What the doctor say and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, one day, the brother burst out with, sis, I wouldn't even come at you like that. And I was like, come at me like what? Like what? What are you talking about? He said, like some of the sisters. I said, oh, yeah, I know you wouldn't, because number one, I study, and number two, I'm not having it. Then come to find out, in less than a month later, the brother had a baby with somebody else. And I'm like, oh, wow, y'all, you sure protected me from that one. You know what I'm saying, sister? I mean, we got to keep it real. We got to keep it real. Not being caught up in the silliness. And brothers, control yourself. Sisters, control yourself. Come on now. You got that inner witness inside of you, that woman intuition. That's letting you know, wait a minute, something ain't right. Listen to it. In the words of my father who passed away, flies hang around what they're attracted to. And that's what I have to say. I know my words are a little bit hard. I know I sound passionate. But come on now, Israel, it's time to wake up. Because Yah is putting things in order right now. He's putting things in order right now. And he's giving us this opportunity to get right and make it right with him. Before he start bringing judgment in America. And it's time to stop playing around and be about the Father's business and be about building the community, helping the community in whatever it needs help with. And cut out the nonsense. Thank you, sisters. I appreciate you. Thank you, Sal. I appreciate you too.
So for calling in, sis, we really appreciate you weighing in and
and giving all of that, giving that great advice. And your passion shows. We appreciate you, sis.
I love everybody. I just want y'all to stop the nonsense out there. For those of you who are doing the nonsense.
We understand. We got you loud and clear, sis. Stay with us. We're going to be on for a little bit longer. We're already winding. We're going to start winding down. It's already 10:43 here in Brooklyn and on the East Coast. And you're tuning in now, then you missed quite a bit. But you're listening to Under the Palm Hebrew Women Speak, the summer edition. Before we start our regular season, we're going into season 2. But we have one more caller. So let's go to that caller. Seth, who do we have behind door number 5?
Let's go to 414-556. Salama. 414.
Shalom?
Shalom. I couldn't hear her. Was it going to hang up?
Welcome to the conversation.
This is Medjugorje. Great conversation, great discourse. I won't be long. I guess I was looking at the advertisement and it looked like it was wolves and shepherd's clothing. Is that right? Okay, so to me, it's almost like the movement has been infiltrated by, you know, like that term agent, right? And so you have to be able to manage people that are hostile. And so this is really not so much about trying to put the onus on the woman, but, you know, at some point you have to be able to equip your assets to be able to deal with hostile assets. It's unfortunate that you have people that are predators that will look to misappropriate people's good intentions and their belief and their faith in them. But typically victims victimize. So, you know, that being said, what we set out to do is to equip women with the means to be critically analytical and their abilities to manage information so that they're not likely to be targeted to be mishandled. We've set out to equip women with literacy, equip them with the means to understand research methodology, so that in the event that someone decides they're going to tell them what they'll say at the Lord, they can read for themselves and they can make the appropriate decision. So that being said, for any woman that is going to victim of any moray or any person that misappropriated their position, I'm going to personally put up the time, 4 hours of a language seminar and class for Hebrew at a time to be soon announced, and a venue soon to be announced. And for those that can't make the brick and mortar seminar, we'll find a way for them to have access to it online. So that, you know, we're just not going to point the fingers, we'll just make some strides to keep it from happening again.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask you a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Are you one of the brothers that are part of the Hebrew literacy group that is currently sponsoring Hebrew classes for women on Facebook?
That is correct.
Because you sound like the chief educator who's leading the classes right now. This is Mayana. I'm in your group, and I was actually just giving high praise for your efforts. And I will reiterate that there is a great deal of scholarship, authenticity, and sincerity behind what the brothers in this group is doing. So if you want to share the advertisement with me, if you want to put it in the group, I will help you to circulate this advertisement. I completely appreciate and support what you're doing, and I want to be able to be on record as having said that.
Well, I sincerely appreciate you, and I find it reviling that people would, you know, attempt to take advantage of women or weaponize them or radicalize them. It's no different than people trying to misuse the book to have people strap on a bomb to themselves. You know what I mean? So
So I hope to very soon be able to speak to you in better Hebrew. Thank you so much for investing the time into teaching me and other women.
No, I mean, later.
So do we have any other callers, Sal?
The call that keeps on.
Oh, well, hallelujah. We're looking at less than 15 minutes until the 11 o'clock hour. So with no one calling in, and Amuna, how's the chat looking? Do we have anyone on the YouTube side of Under the Palm?
All right, we have here la-di-dee, la-di-da.
First Lady?
Christianity on trial. That's Sister Sheikah. Says
First Lady has said away from the
oh no, wait, I'm talking on mute. I'm talking on mute. My biz ad. I'm talking on mute. No, we have Sister Sheikah, Christianity on trial, says parents should be involved in the process of selecting mates for children. No practicing marriage. And that's a thought that we've explored here in these spaces. Some get pushback. And I guess to follow up to that question, Marie J. Miller says, when you come into this walk and your whole family is against it and all the persons in it as well, who do you turn to? I'm sorry, I just thought of a song. I'm sorry. Who do you turn? I'm sorry. Who do you turn to for relationship guidance when dealing with the people of Israel? And that's a good question, because that actually happens more often than not when the person feels isolated because they have gone on a path that the majority of their family, if not all of their family, rejects. And so they feel alone, and this makes them even more vulnerable in the selection of a mate. And I think this is why the mate selection is so poor in this area, because you don't have anybody to talk to. And as Sister Miranda said, the first person who shows you attention, male and female, you know, the amount of women who end up feeling obligated to their moray, or the person who first taught them, you begin to ask the question, there's something that happens in that space where, as Miranda says, you know, they think that the reward is their body, because, oh, you taught me the Aleph Beit, now I need to be an Isha. This is something that happens a lot, and the males and females have to be aware of it. And oftentimes I say to male teachers, be careful of how you disseminate the information. You know what I'm saying? Be careful of the signals that you may be sending to the woman, because it's a natural inclination for her to want to get closer to the person, especially if he's a male, especially if he's a strong figure, to begin to develop, as they say in the street, feelings. And so I don't see any more questions. I don't see any more questions here, Sister Mayana, but that's I see Sal saying that there's a caller in the queue. Again, just use some common sense and some discretion. And again, I know Kyle was having some questions about why the man has more responsibility, because he does. Because he does. You know what I mean? He can't want to be the leader, the chief, the one with 50, you know, what's feathers in his hat, and then when it comes time to responsibility, he runs. It kind of doesn't work like that, you know. And so because he does, he needs to be aware of these things. And then the female needs to also realize that he may be aware of these things, and he may just not care and be using it to his own advantage to forward his own agenda. So we have to keep these things in mind as we proceed. It's the reality of what we're dealing with as a people who are returning. So with that, Sister Mariana, y'all already know. Y'all already know what I'm going to say before I say it, Sister Mariana. But I'm going to give you back the mic. I understand we have a caller.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and wind down right after we take this caller. Caller, welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, is it me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we do hear you. Welcome to the conversation.
Hey, it's Malaka.
Hi, Oni.
Honey, Hebrew homework to do. I'm already, our instructor just called in.
Wait a minute. How Sister Malaka gonna play hooky then call in? Sister Malaka.
I was getting down with the parent crew. I was all up in the section getting my Hebrew on.
Oh boy, you played hooky then called in. It's all good, Sister Malaka. How you doing?
Sorry. But it's you know, it was for a worthy cause. And I knew you guys were ably holding it down, so I wasn't worried. But we love it. She was in the chat box, listening in the back end. We had a UTP in spirit. Go on. Right. What did you want to say? Well, what I wanted to say was just, that I hear a lot of times. I hear sisters say, there's no elders to talk to. I didn't have any guidance, that kind of thing. And I really just kind of don't buy that because there are a lot of elders to talk to if you're looking for them. I think that what I see is very often a lot of the young sisters in Israel want to talk to each other. They want to talk to each other. They want to talk to their clique, their crew. They want to run stuff by each other, and they really don't necessarily want to talk to an older person because they don't necessarily want to hear what the older person has to say. And I just think that's keeping it real. I think, too, that how we determine who we want to listen to is a little bit skewed because we use a lot of the world's ideas to shape who we're going to give respect to, or who we're going to honor, or who we're going to look to for advice. Oh, well, she's real fly. She got a bunch of subscribers on YouTube, or what? I'm going to talk to her about this situation. I just think that's kind of a mentality that goes on amongst the people, is that we're maybe not looking to the elders, we're looking to those who are highly visible, high profile. And we're looking to them for answers sometimes when we should be, looking to the older sister that sits in the congregation that maybe doesn't say a whole lot, but she's been married to her husband for 40 years, Right. So I think that's part of it. Also, I think that when you're coming from a place of deficit emotionally, it's much easier to be drawn out into a relationship that isn't necessarily sturdy or isn't necessarily on solid ground. And what I mean by an emotional deficit is if you're lonely, if you are starved for affection, starved for attention, it's easier to be won over by words as opposed to action. It's kind of like when you're hungry, you'll eat anything kind of a scenario. If you allow yourself to be emotionally hungry, it's just easier to eat what you're being fed. Even though deep on the inside, you may know this is not really a solid foundation. It's just something's wrong. There's red flags. I still haven't gotten anything in writing from him, and we're 6 months in. That's a red flag. What are you doing? But because I'm hungry for this affection or this attention or this whatever, I'm going to continue to go down this path. And so I think that there has to be some inner work, some healing, some submitting, and I use that word submitting kind of loosely. When I say submitting in this case, I mean this kind of deferring to an older woman's advice or an older couple's advice. If you don't have a mom and dad in the truth, try to find a mom and dad in the faith. If you don't have a mother that's in the faith, try to find a mother that's in the faith, someone that is, living an outstanding life. You can see their lifestyle being walked out in front of you. I think there are people like that around. I know a few. I have women that are older than me, and I'm pretty old. I'm 55. And I know a couple of women older than me that I can call and talk to if I'm having a situation in my marriage I'm not sure how to deal with it. So I guess I think the bottom line of what I'm saying is that we have to be honest with ourselves about how much counsel we really are seeking, how much a lot of the things that we do are based on our emotional needs and our emotional deficit. And when you have a brother saying the right things, you know, when I was a kid, we used to call that dream tellers or dream pushers, you know. And you have a brother saying, pushing that dream to you, well, we're going to get married, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Even though you're not seeing the actions that are backing that up, it's easy to accept it and not monitor the red flag, not acknowledge the red flag. So, you know, yes, I think the onus is on a brother because Torah says, you know, the brother's using enticing words, right? But there's responsibility with the sister too. And now, the scripture tells us, and for those who are, you know, believers in the New Testament, is that constant testimony that we're supposed to carry our vessel in honor. We're supposed to keep our vessel in honor. It is not honorable to have multiple partners, and especially when no one knows that they're being part of a multiple partner, or everybody doesn't know, or, you know, only one person knows, or whatever. That's not honorable. And we're supposed to carry our vessels in honor. So I guess, you know, I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but I think I made a couple of points, so I'll yield.
Oh, before you go anywhere, that was the voice of Sister Malaka, who is the author of The Care and Feeding of the Single Mother. And it approaches a lot of, I think that I encourage actually all of the anyone in the listening audience, male or female, to head over to Amazon and pick that up because it gives a lot of insight into not feeding into that lonely space, not feeding into those moments of despair. And it's from a Hebraic perspective. There's a lot of scripture in there, a lot of insight in there. So again, what you've been listening to is the voice of Sister Malaka, who is a member of the Under the Palm family, and you can find her book on Amazon, or you can contact her directly for other promotions on her book. And again, the title is The Care and Feeding of the Single Mother. Malaka, you're going to have to learn how to promote your stuff. I always hate to do about that, Lenny, but absolutely, just in case you're wondering why she sounds so on point in that area, is because she literally wrote the book on the matter. So thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate you as always. Okay, well, you know what? We're officially past the 11 o'clock hour, which means we are officially in the overtime portion of the show. But we're about to wrap up and say our Lila Tovs, our good nights, our thank you for tuning in. Before we do that, I want to give all honor, praise, and thanks to the Holy One of Israel for traveling mercies and bringing our beloved Sister Only Love back home from the continent to New York from the continent. I get to see her this coming Sunday. I've missed her dearly, and I am ever so grateful that the Most High has returned her to me and to us in one piece, in good spirits, in good health, and after having had a successful and enriching ministry over in the continent with our Hebraic brothers and sisters there. Look forward to season 2, where Only Love will share some of her experiences, research, and information. There has been a lot of discussion about whether or not we are pro the continent, and obviously you would have to have never heard any of our shows to not know the answer. Is a strong affirmative that we have deep affiliations, deep affinity, and deep affection for the Hebrews in the diaspora from here to the continent and wherever the Most High has scattered us. So again, look forward to being blessed by Sister Only Love and the research that she has brought back with her all the way from the continent. So Amuna, with that, do you want to add anything? It is like there's anything happening in the chat. I just checked, but unless there's been some new development in the last 30 or 40 seconds, I'm going to say we're pretty good over on that side.
Yes, it's pretty good. And one is gonna say,
Pretty good, right?
everybody get some sleep.
Can't, before we turn into the big pumpkin at the 12 o'clock hour, I'm going to wind up early, or not so early, at the 11 o'clock hour and say, good night. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had great viewership over on the YouTube channel. Again, that YouTube channel is www.youtube.com/under-the-palm. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get updates on what Amuna and I are getting into on and off of this beautiful Debate Talk For You platform, where we have our shows, The Relationship Challenge and Under the Palm Debate Talk For You edition. Our producer, Sal Showtime, whom we respect and appreciate, we're going to give a shout out to him before we close out our summer edition. Thank you so much for welcoming us back to your platform and allowing us to serve the community from this space. So, Amuna, was that your goodbye? Should I wrap up and good night to all?
Yeah. Everybody have a good night. All praise be to the Most High. Continue to elevate, continue to strive. Invest in yourself, invest in your healing, invest in your family and your community. One.
Thank you. And if you haven't already subscribed to Debate Talk For You, please go over to www.youtube.com/Debate Talk For You and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss another episode of Under the Palm or TRC or any of the amazing segments that we have here on Debate Talk For You. Sal, Lala Tov.